Hello and welcome to the Weekly Scroll podcast brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan, and joining me once again this week is going to be the dulcet tones of our wonderful Jason.
The dulcet tones. You guys have my morning voice too, so welcome to the podcast.
It's even better
dulcety.
if that was possible. You guys get my tired voice like normal, which starts low and gets really high as I get excited in the middle of the games. So what's funny is when I actually edit the podcast, pretend to edit the podcast, the volume like slowly just keeps getting bigger and bigger on the waveform as we go. And I'm like, I wish I could just shut the fuck up sometimes. That'd be cool. Anyway, this is the podcast. We're doing it. And this week we are going to be going over a game from one of my favorite creators, Adam Vass from Worldchamp Game Co. It is Babes in the Wood, the Ennie nominated
TTRPG
family game, TTRPG, yeah. For and it's Ennie nominated for best family game. We'll go over what it's all about. I mean, you can see, if you're not in podcast land, you can see this awesome background behind me. I actually at one point want to bring up the Kickstarter too, because I somehow missed that Kickstarter and all the swag you got with it. Let me tell you what, if anyone out there has it, this won't be the last time I make the offer this episode to hit me up and let me know what you want for it. But anyway, so yes, Babes in the Wood, Adam Vass. First, we're going to do what we always do, kind of, most of the time, and that is Kickstart the Podcast. Are you ready for this, Jason?
I am so ready for it. I even have some Kickstarted goods that I received.
Oh, well, you should have let me know, because we do have a whole window for physical rewards. But we'll do that next time then. I think I did see a flash of, is that Vaesen?
I got Vaesen. I got Into the Odd even.
Oh, don't show it off yet.
I even have your copy.
Yeah. You have a lot of my stuff that I got to pick up.
I do. I have his B collection at my house right now.
There you go. Yeah. For those who don't know, I moved and then had so many Kickstarters in transit that I got them sent to Jason's house, and then I have to go pick them up. But here we go into Kickstart the Podcast. One thing I found out is when the transition is happening, it cuts the audio. So I try to stop talking during the transition. Yeah, I don't know why. I'll have to figure that out.
Weird.
The first one we're going over, I thought you'd find this interesting. It's called Hagmag, a terrible RPG adventure setting for 5e.
Love the name. 5e,
yeah, I love
wow.
Hagmag.
You're talking about a 5e setting. What's going on?
Hey, listen. So, funny story. When I was chatting with the creators about this, I was like, so listen, if you've ever listened to our podcast, you'll know that we give 5e a real brush over the coals pretty frequently. Yeah. So I'm very happy to go over this because it seems really, really cool, as long as you're okay with a nice gentle ribbing for doing 5e. And they're like, hey, gotta do what you gotta do. So this is Hagmag. It is a zine-style tabletop RPG adventure setting about the fantasy genre's most hilarious and disgusting creature, hags. I fucking love hags. I always try to get them in my game. I know you guys in our dark fantasy game, I had one come in and I wanted it to come back again later. It just didn't really ever feel like a good time since it kicked your ass and then disappeared. But the other thing about this project is it's not just for 5e. So quick breakdown here in the beginning. Yeah, right. This is from 3 apparitions. They are a group of 3 tired dads struggling through bleary eyes and foggy brains to bring you top-tier tabletop role-playing games. So this is actually their first piece of content, as far as I'm aware, that they're putting out. So Hagmag, it is the first project from 3 apparitions. It is a publication compatible with 5e monsters, NPCs, and magic items, but with a robust adventure setting and story hooks that can be applied to any fantasy genre tabletop game. All with a focus on what we feel are one of fantasy's most underrated creature archetypes, hags. So the system itself is actually system neutral, or the adventure itself is system neutral. Yeah. Okay. It's ripe with legends, lore, and backstory. You can drop Witch Willow Bog, which I assume is the setting, into your campaign for one session, or stick around and uncover all the seedy secrets and colorful characters Land has to offer. It comes with 13 system-neutral adventure hooks, 10 new 5e compatible mundane weapons, because there's not enough weapons in 5e already.
But they don't have mops and spoons and buckets though, or the dreaded oyster midden buckshot.
I mean, it's very true. And you can't live without that. New 5e compatible magic items. Still, the many books and books out there about it are not enough. And 5 new 5e compatible monsters and NPC stat blocks.
Wait. You gotta go back really quick and read the description. It's exactly for the magic items. It's exactly for the mundane weapons, such as mops, spoons, and buckets, but magical.
Yeah, it's great. Cool. I love the way that they wrote this. It's really tongue in cheek. I know, like I said, we're definitely gonna rib them a bit for doing 5e, because do something that's not for 5e. But this project does look really, really cool, and the art is fantastic. You also get some randomly generated hag cocktails, hag name generator, rules for snail racing minigame, which is cool, and 100% original artwork by James Boyle. Which is gorgeous. Let me tell you what,
it's really good.
It's really good. I really enjoy that. It's got like a, how would I even describe this? Like a neo OSR kind of.
Yeah, it's a little more
tattoos.
Yeah. So it's a little more stylized or cartoony, I guess you could say, but still within this sort of pen and ink, gloominess that is the OSR style. Cross hatching and
yeah. I don't know if I'd say cartoony. I think just more like there's depth to it. Like there's like more shading and shadows, and like it's not just black and white. There's like levels to the gray.
The face
go down to Cinderella.
But anyway, yeah, it's reminiscent.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's almost got a little bit of a comic booky kind of.
Yeah, do you know Becky Cloonan?
I don't.
She's a great artist, and it reminds me a lot of her art. So if anybody knows Becky Cloonan, you'll know what we're talking about.
Gotcha. I mean, it's still like we're trying to give it compliments because it's really fucking good. Like the Elder Mop is such a cool piece here. The layout looks pretty simple and straightforward, but like really clean and in a really nice way. And again, just the art is great all the way through. I love the font choices that they do. For those in podcast land, we're scrolling through, and they actually have a really like hefty amount of previews of the pages and spreads in here. And like I said, it's clean and looks really, really well done. Like this, again, like a lot of this really gives me that kind of like Neo OSR feel. Like I like the armor class speed and hit points, but they have like icons for it, which is like a cool way to do it that feels a little bit more modern, which is cool. So, and this, let me tell you what, when I read this and I was talking to the creators, one of the first things I said was, shit, that is a cool fucking t-shirt. There's this beautiful, oh my gosh, this beautiful picture where it's this kind of like hunched over figure with a tree, like this weeping, like leafless weeping willow kind of like growing up and out of it. And in the branches it says great grandmother, which I believe is their most nefarious new 20 CR plus hag that they're going to have in it. So yeah, the great grandmother, really, really cool. And I really like their little logo too. It looks like it took about 1 second to sketch out, but it's just these 3 little ghosties. And I don't know why, it's just so good. Like you could easily throw that on any part of the book, big or small, and it looks really nice. It's super clever. And yeah, so that's Hag Mag. I do really like I said, that, I mean, again, it's 5e. It'd be cool if it wasn't.
Well, let me ask you
that.
This. So 5e, is it really only like the stat blocks and the magical items? Because the setting is sort of system neutral. So is that the
exactly
only 5e part of it?
So that's what it sounds like to me, is that since the setting is system neutral, the hooks are system neutral, it really just comes down to, like you just said, the mundane items, the magic items, and the stat blocks. And that's about it. And that's another reason I was like, I know it's 5e, but a lot of it's not, and it seems really, really, really cool. I mean, there's not a lot of really good swamp stuff out there. So if this, especially with the art, if it comes out and it's really good, and it is funded, it passed its funding goal yesterday, I think, and it still has 11 days to go. Looks like a great project. And again, easily to drop into other stuff. And if you are a fan of 5e, go for that. What I really like is a lot of projects, this one's not doing it, are starting to do 5e/OSE, which is a cool way to do a lot of projects. And it's cool to see
what they're doing there. They're trying to migrate people over to the good side.
And I'll take it. But again, this doesn't do that. But once again, it looks like a really, really, really cool project. So whether you are into 5e or not, this looks like it could easily have a lot of really cool content and beautiful art for your games. So definitely grab this. I definitely picked this up. So yeah, that is the first one we're talking about today. Hagmag. Check it out on Kickstarter from 3 Apparitions. Cool project. And the other one we're talking about today is itch funding. It is called Broken, a tragic romance game for 2 players by Ben Wallace. This one is interesting. I was actually talking with the creator as well, and they sent me like a preview version of this. Man, this would hurt. This hurts a little bit. You know, when you read it, you're like, fuck, if you really invest and play this game, it's really going to hit you like in your gut. It reminds me. Do we not? Oh, well, yeah, I'll send you the link.
I found the other one, but link me. Just, I want to check it out.
I'll hit it to you in Discord real quick.
Okay.
There we go. I usually, that's my bad that I didn't send you either of these.
No worries.
But this is just, it's a beautiful looking project. And actually, Tony, +1 EXP had a playthrough with the creator just the other day. So, I got a chance to read it and it's great. But if you actually want to see it be played, I would definitely go check out, +1 EXP, either in their VODs on Twitch or up on YouTube at some point. But it looks really cool. So let me actually tell you about this game that I'm repping. So, Broken is a tabletop role-playing game of tragic romance for 2 players about broken objects and broken hearts. Create 2 characters. I'm going to blow this up a little bit because... There we go. Create 2 characters in a relationship, and over the course of 10 scenes, you will explore the ways in which the things you loved about each other crack until everything about your relationship is broken, including the 10 real-life physical objects you will break over the game's 10 scenes. In Broken, the relationships will always end. Although the tragic conclusion is inevitable, there is endless potential for healing and self-discovery along the way. Broken is an emotionally deep game that explores themes of memory, identity, and loss. Broken is also full of empathy building, hope, and healing. Broken is a game that recreates the raw, visceral experience of going through a breakup along with the catharsis of smashing objects, all while telling a beautiful story along the way. So you literally...
break things.
Bring 10 objects, and one of the things is you can actually bring 10 things, and it says make sure they're yours, make sure you're allowed to break it, make sure it's not going to hurt anybody, or you can write objects onto like popsicle sticks, and when it's time to break it, you can just like metaphorically break the thing if you don't want to bring like vinyl and stuff. But it even talks about like you can either do it individually or together in the relationship. So you can do 5 and 5 if you want. It says a great idea is to go like thrifting or go like yard sale shopping to pick up like old breakables, you know, from places to bring things in and just see how you could tie them into the relationship. So there's a lot of different ways that you can tie in these objects into the story. But as you go through the 10 scenes, you really physically do break the objects. And I can just imagine, like I said, like really investing in these scenes and then actually just getting to like have that cathartic moment of actually smashing this thing that was either yours or theirs, and for whatever reason it breaks along as your relationships continue to break.
Seems like a therapeutic thing. It also reminds me a bit of 10 Candles, how there's that physicality brought to the game where you're burning your actual traits and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, this reminds me, there was like 2 other games that kind of punched me in the gut, even just like reading the preview. I don't know why I'm blanking on the one. It's the one I thought about first. The second one was Signal to Noise. It was, I know we went over it in the podcast here, where you're 2 people, one on like a ship. And as the further you go apart, the less your communication actually gets through until you're literally beyond communication. So you have to like kind of say all you want to say as you go. And there's another one. I should dig through this, but I'm probably not going to. But it's a small card game where it's like this, where it's you're in a relationship and the relationship is falling apart, and you basically play out how the relationship falls apart. And it's just, when I read even just the preview of that other game that I was just talking about, it it strikes you in the gut a little bit, and it makes you feel like, fuck, like this, I can imagine running through this and just like what this is going to feels like. And this, especially just reading the preview, but once I was actually reading through it, I was like, oh man, like this one's going to hurt. Like it really is. Let me see.
Yeah, I think that's what's cool about RPGs is that, you know, they're so unique to other games, is that you can sort of, you can go to those places if you want to, you know, with the right crowd.
Yeah. Oh,
so
absolutely.
It's neat. Yeah.
The other game I was trying to remember is called I Guess This Is It. And we talked about that on Kickstart the Podcast at 1.2. And it had that same kind of visceral, like the relationship, you know, it ends and how do you get there kind of thing. So this is actually on itch. This is itch funding because we talk about this. We try to let people know Kickstart the Podcast is not just for Kickstarter. It's for GameFound. It's for itch funding. It's for any of the other crowdfunding projects out there. If you have a project that you would like us to talk about, just shoot us a message, send us a press kit, you know, and if we can, we'll go over it. But this was a really neat one. It's still itch funding right now. It's at 1,400 plus of its $1,700 goal. It actually funded the original goal in the first 24 hours, and now we're just in stretch goals at this point. So it's past the full ebook, and now on to stretch goals. I would love a physical, you know. I mean, I'll take a physical copy of every book, but this one's just an ebook. So, and it's $15. So check it out. It is on Apon Games. It's APONGAMES.itch.io/broken. Or you can just search, you know, Broken RPG. The creator is Ben Wallace, Wallis, and they are the gaming priest on the tweeters. If you want to check them out there as well.
Yeah, before we drop on this one, check out the layout. It's really cool. I dig how they're doing the graphic design in it, and also there is an official playlist curated by Samantha Lee, which is awesome. Because, you know, music for me is a massive part of games, so I think that's cool that there's a playlist.
Yeah, Samantha Lee, actually, that's something that she does for games. Like, she literally, like, promotes on Twitter is like, let me make a playlist for you or a playlist for your games. And a lot of creators are doing it, and it's fantastic. I want to make sure I get, it's Goblin Mixtape on Twitter. So if you, she's a ttrpg, they're a ttrpg designer, but freelance is doing stuff like this. So if, like you just said, you want an official playlist for your game or just for yourself, she does that. So definitely check that out. But like you said, the graphic design in it is really nice. Yeah. I like it a lot.
We only see a couple pages, like a full spread, but I dig how they have the type in the window and the foggy window with the little heart drawn on it. It's cool.
Yeah. I'll have to show you the preview PDF. It's good. So yeah, so that is Broken, a tragic romance game. So check that out, and that's what we got. A short Kickstart the Podcast this week, but 2 cool projects. A little bit different than a lot of the projects we talk about, but interesting nonetheless. Yeah. And what I should have done, every week, that I don't do every week, is actually dig through my stuff and pull out this book, which I did not. So we're just going to hop straight into it. We are going to jump over to our review and read through of Babes in the Wood from one of my favorite creators, Adam Vass at Worldchamp Game Company. So, quick first impressions. I say this to Hunter all the time, and I say like 10 words or less, and then he gives me a paragraph, but I do the same shit, so it doesn't fucking matter. Quick first impressions before we start digging through this and kind of chatting our way through the rules and some of the stuff.
Very heavily narrative-driven RPG. Mm-hmm. So it's a tabletop role-playing game of kids and critters lost in an endless wood on Halloween night. So it takes place on Halloween. Heavily narrative-based. If what I liked about it too is that, I know this is more than a paragraph, but it balances the harm aspect between physical and psychological. So mm-hmm. I feel like we're so accustomed, and emotional. We're so accustomed to hit points and like, a sword will kill you, and then when you hit 0, you're dead. This is it brings in that other aspect, the emotional, psychological part, which is cool. Yeah, it's a journey through a mysterious wood.
Yeah, wow, and like I said, when the very first as soon as I saw the cover and started reading it, I was like, this is Halloween Town. And I know we talked about this before, and you've never seen Halloween Town.
I've never seen Halloween Town. So Ryan and I, we're different generations here. So I'm a little bit older than him, if you didn't know.
Like this much older than me.
I mean, but like that's one thing I've noticed about this. Sometimes when these games or anything, when you're relating it to, you're like, oh yeah, you're a '90s kid. I'm an '80s kid. And so it's just that decade is so different, and you can see that the influences depending on, obviously when you grew up.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry.
I still can't believe you've never seen Halloween Town.
Let me look it up. Maybe I have.
We watch Halloween Town every week. It is Kaylee and mine. It's my wife and I's favorite. I would every year. Halloween is our favorite. Halloween's our favorite holiday, and Halloween Town. Like I fucking hate Christmas and Christmas movies, but I'll watch Halloween movies all fucking day.
So this is a live action.
Yes, it's a Disney movie.
Oh, okay. I thought
I mean like the Disney Channel,
like animated.
No. Not like the old like VHS big thick white box like animated ones. Like I mean like a Disney Channel movie.
Let me see when this came out, because I think we're gonna have the generation gap. It's gonna hit us right now hard. Let's see when it
You're like out. 25 and this came out.
1998. So I was chasing ladies in college in 1998, everybody. So yeah.
In 1998.
Not watching Halloween Town.
I graduated high school in 2003, so I was in middle school.
I graduated college in 2002, so here's some perspective for the viewers.
So you're a couple years older than me. So I was in middle school. I was in middle school when Halloween Town dropped, and I remember watching it and watching it and watching it. It's so good.
But anyway, I'm glad you alerted me of this. Now I have a different perspective on this game.
You gotta watch. Even just look at the pictures. Even just look at, if you scroll through like Halloween Town Disney movie on like Google Images, you're gonna be like, all right, I got it. Even the giant jack-o'-lantern.
There's some familiarity, but I don't know.
I can only imagine that it was at least partial to the at least part of the inspiration. So I love this wallpaper page here of like the toys and the logo, and it's got like the Worldchamp game logo. It's obviously the background for my screen right now because I'm too lazy to put my books away on my bookshelf, so I have a green screen.
Well, let's talk about the art really quick on that note.
Okay.
So it's cool. I mean, it has a very like kind of children's book vibe to it. It's all sort of ink line work, but then full color, and it's kind of scattered throughout the book, so it's a very consistent style. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this too is this is a much different style than Adam usually does in a lot of his games, because Adam usually does like almost all the art for his games.
Because Kim Nguyen illustrated it, right?
Right. So it's which is again a really interesting thing that it's it's a Worldchamp game company, but someone else did the art, which is cool. And it is a great art style, and I love the logo. Like I really do. I know it's really simple, but like the font chosen is perfect for it. The jack-o'-lantern in it is really nice. Like it just really pops. I really enjoy like a lot of the way that this is done and laid out.
Yeah.
This is Babes in the Woods, second edition by Adam Vass, published by Worldchamp, like you just said, illustrated by Kim Nguyen, edited by Tyler Crumrine, poetry by Seb Hines, calligraphy by Rachel Barlock. On the very first page, the one thing that sticks out to me the most on the PDF that just breaks my little heart,
here it comes, folks. Here it comes.
There's no hyperlinks.
I can't click on anything. What? Oh,
you can't. When the little line thing goes over the number, it doesn't turn into a hand, so it's not hyperlinked. Breaks my little heart.
There's one link though. There is one link on this page, and that will take you to worldchamp.io. So
it does. It turns into a little hand right there. And if you go to worldchamp.io, that is where you can find all of Adam Vass's games, and I highly recommend you go check it out because I have almost all of them, and they're wonderful. Let's start going. I can't click on the introduction, so we'll go straight to here. So I love the calligraphy. I think it looks stunning. I can't read. I can't read it.
I know. I was thinking the same thing when I was like, I love it. It's a great evocative image and typography and poem to bring you into the setting. The unfortunate thing is it's so hard for me to read, and you'll see these scattered throughout the book, and but it looks great. It's just,
and I blew them up and I read them and I deciphered them, and it's a gorgeous art piece, and the words are fantastic on them, but like that just this style, and there's some like tattoo styles. Like I have a tattoo on my leg that like
you can't read.
I find the style difficult. I mean, I can read it. It's not quite like this much. But I just find calligraphy and things like this. You know what I can't ever fucking read is all those death metal logos. You know, where it's all fucking this like scratch. I can't ever fucking read that.
That's kind of the point, though, I think, with those things.
So to read this, as well as I can read it, it says, "It said on the darkest of nights, the words, the woods filled with frights, all waiting for first wayward babe led astray. These trees stretch, trees stretch, and they yawn, shadows of those long gone. Once children, now lost, unable to find their own way. Yeah. So bring bags of your tricks. May your candles have wicks. For night falls without end when strange friends come out to play."
Fiends. Is it Fiends?
I love it. Yeah, it's great. Again, and I don't think I would want it written any other way, but it takes me a second to decipher it. Yeah. So it is what it is.
Maybe that's part of the point. I don't know. Maybe they want to do
I mean, that's calligraphy in general. Calligraphy looks beautiful. I can't fucking read it though. I just can't. So, oh, go away, you. There we go. So, overview. Babes in the Wood is a tabletop role-playing game for 2 to 6 people. One person acts as the narrator, describing the world and its inhabitants, such as non-player characters or folks, and inserting challenges into the game's story. The rest of the group each control individual player characters, called PCs, called kids, describing their thoughts, words, and actions over the course of the story and reacting to the circumstances presented by the narrator. In this game, kids are children, critters, and toys wandering a dark, mysterious, and eternal forest. Along the way, they encounter peculiar people, welcoming witches, crafty creatures, and more denizens of the wood. Players then help those in need in creative and obscure ways befitting the logic of children, simultaneously exploring and confronting their own feelings and fears. All the while, an evil presence stalks from the shadows of the wood, a fiend who manipulates the area and its inhabitants according to its dark whims.
That's great vibe. That's the gist of it. Yeah, that's
the whole thing. Your little kids, basically around Halloween, kind of trick or treating, getting lost in the wood, and having to.
You're not only just kids though. Your toys. No, yeah. Well, it could be toys, mysterious creatures. Yeah.
Woods children, all sorts of stuff. Children, so. Things you'll need: access to a list of basic moves. We'll talk about that. The playbook specific to each child. So when it talks about moves and playbooks, each kids need 3 6-sided dice and the narrator specific moves and playlists on page 52. Again, I wish that there were hyperlinks here. I'll try not to harp on that too much, but you know me. Obviously, this is part of the apocalypse.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, as soon as you see like moves and playbooks, you know it's powered by the apocalypse. So a lot of the mechanics, you know, we might be able to breeze through a little bit. Anyone that knows powered by the apocalypse, you know that for the most part, it's 2d6 mixed success, which is my favorite. I'm not a huge fan of the way like Apocalypse World specifically does a lot of the moves and stuff. I actually like these moves better because there's a bigger list of them, which again we talked about in the beginning. We'll go to that part. But I love the mixed success 2d6 system and the bell curve associated with it. It really gets me going. So yeah, there's a little blurb here on the side. It says, of course, you can play with more or less players. Players can choose all different playbooks or have multiples of particular types. That's fine. And you can play this game without a narrator by using special rules in the back. And then as Adam does in, I think, every game of his I've ever read, there are a lot of safety tools listed here. It's pretty much all the varieties of safety tools: open doors, lines and veils, CATS, which is concept, aim, tone, and subject matter, script change. So there are a lot of various ways where you can make sure that everyone at the table is comfortable. And, you know, here on the Weekly Scroll, we're big fans of that. I think me and Jason are fucked up.
We assume if you're playing one of our games, you're cool with a lot of shit. So.
Well, I just assume that I'm cool, and but you know that's I think the safety tool that I've used the most, whether it's like an official one or not, is our zero session, where we really lay out what the game is going to be like, what things are going to do, and if anyone has like when I ran the Evil campaign, I was like, these are my hard lines. If anyone has any others, that's fine, and that's lines and veils and stuff like that. So, just strongly encourage everyone, like we do all the time, whatever. A safety tool that works best for you and your table. It's just always a good idea to at least know who you're playing with, and the best way to.
I think these tools are important if you're gathering a lot of people who you're not intimately familiar with, right?
Right.
Because all my buddies that I've known for years, like, I don't necessarily need this kind of stuff, but I think it's great to have if you're, introducing some new people or playing with some new people. Yeah.
Well, and it's a lot different, like you said, when you're friends with people for a long time, because you kind of understand people's lines and veils just through the context of your friendship and knowledge and stuff like that. Like, I know, for example, like there's certain things I wouldn't talk about with certain people. We don't necessarily need to do it as here, but I've been friends with them for years, and we've had conversations or things have come up, so it's fine. So safety tools are always great. I like that most games put them in, especially if it's your first game. Because I know people, especially when they first started kind of popping up, that were like, I didn't even know this was really a thing. So at least the acknowledgement that they exist is really good to have in there. Do you want to kick off with actually playing the game?
Yeah. So like I said, it's very heavily narrative focused. So Babes in the Wood is played through conversation. So this is a lot of just background of if you're familiar with TTRPGs, it'll sound very familiar, but the narrator describes the setting and situations, and then the players describe how they react and interact to that stuff. And then the conversation continues until there is what's called the move, and that is when we initiate a die roll. And on the right side of this page, we have a bulleted list of all of these attributes. So we have basic moves, which are just common actions you can take at any time, which we'll get to a list of. Special moves, which are part of the actual character playbook, right? Is that what they're called in Powered by the Apocalypse?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then the wood move, this is unique. So it's a singular special action that occurs when characters travel between hollows, which are kind of like almost little hexes, I guess, in this wood, and are forced to enter the depths and dangerous and ethereal forest. Fiend moves, this is a unique thing where there is a fiend that lurks throughout this wood, and they involve the kids facing their fears, literal and metaphorically, by interacting with various shadowy villains. And so there's kind of this fiend that lurks throughout the wood, and then they have their what are called shadows that are like their little minions. There's rare moves. There are special moves designed for very specific instances, like interacting with particular characters or rare items. And it in fact reinforces the fact that these are rare moves, and they may not even encounter them once in your story. And there's some examples later on in the book. And then the narrator moves, the person running the game, they're moves that are used in response to the kid's actions to maintain the drama and momentum of your shared story. So pretty familiar stuff. There's some other unique aspects of this game in regards to the moves, but that is the gist. So moving on, we have when something, an event happens, there is a moves trigger, and that tells you to do a particular thing at the table, and it's going to determine what happens next. So here is where we bring in the dice. So we're rolling 2d6 and add the two resulting numbers to a relevant stat listed in the moves text. And then we have here a very, very common with Powered by the Apocalypse, a 10 plus is a success, 7 and 9 are complications. And you usually have to make you're kind of in a dilemma. You have to make a hard decision between two options, where you take 2 steps forward and 1 back. 6 or less are misses, and your attempted action has an unintended and occasionally dire consequence. But what was cool about this, though, is it's kind of like failing forward. So in all of these moves, you gain an XP every time you roll below 6. So it's not like you're just you're trashed, right? There's a little bit of a reward point, kind of like void points even in Death in Space, which we're running right now.
That's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah. And then here's a loose rule. So there is a grouping of rules, but if a player wants to do something that isn't covered by a move, their character simply succeeds at doing it. So I imagine you could probably roll against the ability scores. I can't remember what they're called in here, but I think it's encouraged to allow things to happen. Supposedly, if there's no like stakes involved, and then finally we have and then finally we have advantage and disadvantage, and we know how this works. So advantage, you roll 3d6, and the 2 highest results increasing the odds of success, or you use the 2 highest results. And disadvantage, you take the 2 lowest results. And there's a couple of examples between both or beneath both. So advantage is you're placing a glue bucket trap on the door frame. Another player distracts the target outside, so the narrator grants you advantage on your cause mischief roll. Cause mischief being a move. Disadvantage is the same. It's just the inverse, which is cool. They use the same exact example.
I really love the examples throughout. Like, first of all, it's always great to have examples and examples of play, but like these examples, the way that things are written in here, it like it really reinforces the vibe that you're playing as children and stuff like that, like a glue trap. And one thing about Powered by the Apocalypse, the funny thing is I've never actually read through like Apocalypse World, but I've read just like a ton of Powered by Apocalypse games.
I've skimmed it, but I've never like completely digested it, you know.
Hard same. Yeah, I think the one that I've really dug through the most that is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, because there's a lot of PBTA and post PBTA games out there, but there's not like there's like 10 or 15 that are actually officially powered by the apocalypse, you know.
Right.
But the concept of 2d6, and I said this before and I'll say it again, I love so much, and a d20 roll always irritates me because it's a 5% chance. So it really, depending on the modifiers you have, I don't like as much that fate just is like, you know, you could have a -3 and still succeed, and you could have a +10 and still fail. Bugs me a little bit. I like the smaller scale of the 2d6, and as far as I know, and I might be pulling this out my ass, the bell curve on 2d6 is actually 6 to 8. But there's just this kind of assumption in the rule set that you probably have at least a +1 from some source. So the partial success is 7 to 9. And the whole concept of like the partial success is like, it's a yes and, which I really, really like, or like a yes, but it's not a no. And I think that's just such a great way to, like you said, like not even just like fail forward with the 6 get an XP, but like succeed and cause something interesting to happen instead of just like, all right, you did it. Good fucking job. What's next? You know. So anyway, that's my spiel on my love of 2d6 once again.
Cool. And I was talking to this about to Ryan before the stream, but it's very reminiscent of Tales from the Loop, put out by Free League. So it kind of had that vibe where you're playing children, you're in a very, you know, quote unquote dangerous landscape, but there are rewards for fail. It's not like it's treated similarly, where, you know, when you fail at something, it's not like, you know, you take a bullet or something like that, or you're wounded. It's lighter than that. So moving on to characters, we have a cast of characters on page 8.
Well, I was gonna say first, look at this piece of art, you know, and you know, anyone that knows me and Jason.
Is it ironic that we're reviewing this game?
That we're the two that are doing this? Yeah, probably the two darkest people that most people are going to meet. But it's cute as fuck. I'm not going to lie. It's cute. I love the art style. I think the artist did a fantastic job. And in this picture, you see there is a girl dressed as a witch. There's a kid who's like a page boy kind of. There's a fox, like a critter. There's a little kid in what reminds me most of like the Buzz Lightyear little minion things, you know, from the vending machine from Toy Story. And then a ballerina, like wooden marionette ballerina.
Yeah, creepy as hell with these eyes, these ever-staring eyes. My favorite part though is the kid, the page boy in the back, how he's just kind of, he looks unsure of what's going on here. Everybody else is smiling, and he's just like, I don't know, man.
Well, even the witch too is kind of like, what the fuck on her face. So it's like the big kids are like, ah, and like the little kids and critters and toys are like, good times.
Yeah. Monsters,
Yeah, and I think even that feeds into the story of the book when we get to like what the big kids versus little kids are. I think the art really, really settles in.
Yeah. Speaking of that, we'll talk about big kids and little kids and characters. You want to take that one?
Yeah. Sure, yeah. And Babes in the Wood each player, other than the narrator, takes on the role of a single character. You RP it. You speak in their voices. You describe their conversations, actions, and reactions. And they are kids. Kids, capital K, bolded. And there are these, 5 different things that you can be. Each archetype comes with a playbook, which details traits and special moves. You talked about that earlier. And we'll find those later in the back of the book for all the different things that you can do. It's a pretty there's a lot on the character sheet. We'll definitely go over it. But yeah, so you get a handful of kid archetypes to choose from. First is the big kids, which are the 10 to 15 year olds. And I love this. You might not consider yourself a child anymore with all the wisdom of the world you've acquired in your double-digit age. Big kids are often group leaders by default, regardless of their qualifications or desire to do so. They are better at physical tasks, but less lucky with emotional actions, which is great. It's just written so well for this stuff. In nursing, we actually break, things down by age groups, and I think they did a really good job of hitting each one with their things here. And like I see the big kid as being like, I don't want to go trick-or-treating, but my little sister made me, or something.
Yeah. And what's neat is at the bottom of each one of these, the final line on all of these, they tell you what they're good and bad at. So yeah, I really like how like you just said, in the description you get more than just a little blurb of flavor. It's fantastic. Little kids 9 and under, you're excited to explore and interact with the world around you and to meet its inhabitants. Everything is fun and everyone is your friend. And the last line, they have more skills with emotional tasks but less physical prowess. Pretty much the opposite of the big kids. Critters are actual animals, but something about you is special. You're able to blend into the wood scenery as needed. Critters are highly intelligent at the expense of emotional and physical strength. Then you have toys. You are still trying to understand what is happening around you. Your body moves in mysterious new ways. You have a very Pinocchio vibe to this. You've become animate by the power of the woods. Toys are extremely loyal and caring towards their children counterparts, often to the detriment of their own well-being. And finally, there are the woods children. You have been in the woods so long you don't know any other way. This immediately struck me as Lost Boys, but like in creepy Halloween woods. Lost Boys, like the vampire movie?
No, yeah, like that. That's exactly like.
Oh, you talking
Pan.
fucking Pinocchio? Oh, Peter Pan again.
Peter Pan.
Here we are, Disney references.
You've never seen Peter Pan?
I've seen Peter Pan, but come on.
Or Hook, or like.
When I was a kid, I was like, Disney, what the fuck? Get out of here.
Come on. You gotta play a little kid when we play this game, so you can read.
See that right there? That's all you need to know. He's like Lost Boys. I'm thinking like the vampire movie from the '80s. He's thinking Peter Pan. So
Peter Pan. It's the fucking Lost Boys.
Yeah. No, I know.
Anyway, so woods children have a better understanding of some of the strange qualities of the people in the woods, but don't always understand the wants and fears of those more concerned with the outside world. Like you were a kid, you've been lost in the woods for so long. This is what you know now.
That's
you
cool.
are a woods child. Yeah, I really like it.
I would personally play a creepy doll. I think in this,
you'd go with a toy.
I would go with a toy, and I know it said they're extremely loyal and caring to their children counterparts, but I'd have some creepiness happening with my wooden marionette or whatever it was.
Is that just like these?
Or like a creepy porcelain doll, maybe.
Oh yeah, like from Morkborg, you just get to be one of those.
Yeah.
You use the icon and everything. We're playing this game and everything is all cutesy, and then we just have like the fucking doll face from Morkborg just like popping up. That's not terrifying at all for anybody. So on the next page, there's a breakdown of the character sheet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. If that gives you enough letters. So there's a decent amount going on with the character sheet here. Yep. So regardless of your chosen kid archetype, each playbook is composed of these handful of building blocks. So A is the basics. Names, pronouns, age, costume, what you look like. B is your actual stats. Your stats in this game, there's 3 of them, are Steam, which is your physical actions. Noodle, which is your mental actions. Yeah.
Use your noodle.
Using the old noodle. Yeah.
Tell me before I explain. Talk about the last one and tell me what you gathered from that. I didn't fucking
mush.
Get it. Yeah.
Is social
social
actions:
mush?
Convincing, listening, consoling, befriending.
So I showed Jess this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I imagine a little kid being like, "Oh, I don't deal with that mushy stuff."
There you go.
You know what I mean?
That's what she said, and I was like, "That's probably it." But like, I was like, "I don't mush." I'm just thinking of like a pile of goo. I was like, I didn't.
It's probably all that mushy, gross,
mushy, emotional
stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. Like listening and consoling to people.
Yep.
That mushy stuff, yeah. And I like, I mean, even I'm gonna say the first time I ran through this work, I'm like, what? And then I sat and thought about it, and I was like, oh, Steam, because you build up Steam and you go.
Yeah. Okay, it's funny.
Noodle, using the noodle, and mush. Yeah, I like it. I think it's cute.
Yeah,
AF.
I think it fits the vibe. I think it fits the vibe for sure. And it's like, with the exception of I didn't get mush right away, but I feel like noodle and Steam like immediately communicate.
It's probably another
physical
one of those
and
age
mental
things.
It's another age thing.
You're just too old to get the mushy stuff.
Yeah, maybe I'm just mushy, and that's I didn't. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
But
before we continue on, real quick, just the picture of the character sheet. It's the same. I mean, it's the same art throughout, but each section is kind of got like candy written on it, or candy. So like the steam, noodle, and mush are in these little hard candies. There's a harm section that are on lollipops. There's items that are on candy corn, which I think is a fantastic idea. First of all, candy corn is like the greatest candy ever created by man.
Controversial.
Wow.
We just lost some subscribers right there.
Yeah.
Man.
I'll tell you what's also delicious. You know those fucking styrofoam like circus peanuts? Yeah. But candy corn, I'll die on that fucking hill. If you don't like candy corn,
do you eat all the peanuts from the Free League packages you get? The packing peanuts? Do you like those?
No, it's fine. Though I usually throw those in the sink because they're
biodegradable.
They're biodegradable. Yeah. Anyway, candy corn is amazing. Eat it. I can't anymore because it's very hard to find vegan candy corn. Anyway, we'll talk about why candy corn is perfect for the items in a second. Each of your stats has a number assigned to it between -1 and 2, which is a really interesting small range. A lot of games do -3 to +3. So -1 to 2 is an interesting kind of very small range. Higher numbers are better, lower numbers are bad. Section C is just big blank areas so you can write your special moves down. Section D is your harm. Harm is the kind of damage you can take in the game. It's mental, emotional, or physical. And the wood does not differentiate between the types. So whether you feel insulted or frustrated or exhausted, all the harm types are the same. And those are on lollipops. E is items. And I really like this. All useful tools and trinkets you carry with you through the wood are your items. You can only carry 3 items, and each one has up to 3 uses. So that's why the candy corn is such a good... it just struck me as like clever. I like these little clever things where I'm like, oh, it's already candy on the board. Candy corn has 3 different colors on it, 3 uses.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah,
but you can also, I believe, you can have a special item, right, that doesn't degrade.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't fit into the rest of that stuff. Right. So that's just your base items. And then what I like with the character sheet is you can actually mark off the uses. And realistically, you know what I would do? Is I would have a color. I would have the yellow, and I would have the orange, and then What's funny, a real quick side story. When I was young, I knocked my 3 front teeth out jumping on my bed. Yeah, when I was 5, knocked them right out.
Okay, so not permanent then.
Yeah,
or were they?
No, when I was younger, it fucking So then they didn't grow back for 4 years. They didn't grow back till I was 9. But every Halloween, I would take the candy corn and I would bite it down to just the white piece, and then I would just stick it in there, and I'd be like, they're growing back. And she'd be like, that was a fucking little idiot. But anyway, that's candy corn.
You had like little candy corn nub teeth, little candy corn nub teeth.
Down. That's all I needed to trick her every year.
I have a Photoshop project after the podcast. So there we go.
Here you go.
Yeah, screenshot.
We'll have another emote here coming. So like you just said, all kids except critters have signature items at the start of play, something they brought with them on the journey for being little kids. It's an item that corresponds to their Halloween costume. And toys and woods children have something relevant to their identity. Section F, again, there's a lot on the character sheet. Is hope. It's what motivates you to keep going when things are bad. So you write something that your character wants. It can be profound, like a better sibling, or to find your way home, or simple, like to eat a big sandwich.
I needed one of those. My sibling sucks.
Yeah, mine did too. Were you a middle child?
No, I'm the oldest child.
Oh, well, that explains it.
2, yeah.
You only had I had 2 sisters, older and younger. I was a middle and the only boy.
Oh, man.
If that doesn't tell you all you need to know about me. I always put the seat down. As a story, no. So Oh, no, okay. So as the story unfolds, you'll make realizations about yourself and make progress towards accomplishing or revisiting this hope. Collecting hope helps to keep you safe when you come face to face with the fiend or their agents on your journey. Your hope value increases from 0 at the start of play to 5 and never goes down. Next to each of the 5 circles in this track, you'll record insights about how those experiences help you achieve your hope. And when you have 5 hope, you are able to leave the wood. So we'll explain that a little bit better. So the hope section up here has, little candy pieces, just like everything else. So in section G, you write your friendships, which is values representing how strong your relationships are. And they do not need to be reciprocated by other players. Fear is what causes you grief, gives you pause, or otherwise impedes your ability to keep going. You write down something your character is afraid of. And along your journey, you will be confronted with your fear, both directly and in the periphery. Your fear is a value that fluctuates between 0 and 5, representing the intensity of scares you witness in the wood and how affected you are by interacting with them. So I feel like all this is important. Certain moments may have you confronting or even giving into your fear, in which case you'll put a mark on your fear path, and your ability to continue traversing the woods with your friends will be negatively impacted. So a lot of the core ability to continue on or even get out is hopes and fears. Which makes a ton of sense. Wishes is a currency you can use during the game to change the structure of the story. You begin the game with 1 and may hold a maximum of 2. XP is earned by performing moves and acts in particular ways. It's XP. You may hold a maximum of 7 at a time. And questions are considerations about your characteristics, past experience, and relationships that help define your character. You answer these before play begins, revealing some answers to other players. So why don't we roll up some characters here? Are you gonna roll up?
I'm gonna roll up. Let's see what my costume is here.
So are you gonna go with the kid?
It's 2d6. Yeah.
2d6. Yeah.
Oh, so wait. No. I'm gonna be the. Where's the toy? There's Critter and Kid. Oh, okay. I guess I have a costume. I didn't even realize this. Is there no like toy?
Roll for toys? No, I'm pretty sure there is a roll for toy section. There's gotta be.
I just see Critter and costumes. So if you're a Critter or you're a costume.
Maybe you wait a second. Let's go back to toys.
Because this is the first chart. This is the first table.
I was almost sure. So toys, you're still trying to understand what is happening around you. Your body moves in mysterious ways.
Yeah, because it's hopes and fears next. Maybe there's not one.
Maybe not.
Would have been cool to have one.
Maybe you just are what you. Maybe you just are what your costume is.
Yeah, let's see.
We'll keep going. Maybe there's something a little bit later.
Let's do a d6 or 2d6. Yeah. So I got 1, 5. So cowpoke. Perfect. Lasso is my special item.
Nice.
There we go.
And I got a 31. So I am a scientist with a microscope.
There you go.
Interesting. If I could pick, obviously I would go with the vampire, but and then critters are interesting too. I'm just gonna go ahead and roll another one just to see what critter I get, and I got a 63. I would be a lynx.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, kind of weird how there's no tables for the toys or the wood children, but like I don't know. That's interesting. Because the next one is just hopes and fears.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an explanation for it in a little bit, and I feel like we saw it. Maybe it's on like the character sheet or something that's a little bit different, or something that's after this section. Do you want to roll?
My hopes and fears.
Yeah, roll your hopes and fears. I'm just gonna roll 2d6.
All right, everybody. My hope is to be a better sibling. Oh, isn't that irony? Just what we were just talking about. So my fear is loss of control. This sounds like my siblings' traits. That's exactly what it sounds like.
My hope is to return home unscathed. And cool my fear is darkness. One thing I love about random tables is how often like you can make a story out of it, and it all makes sense.
Oh yeah, I love random tables more than anything, and so I'm glad they've included them.
So good. So we're gonna get to basic moves, and there's a lot of these. Do you wanna roll through some of these basic moves? Give your opinion.
Let's talk about these basic moves. So, and this kind of harkens back to what we were just talking about with all of these attributes on the character sheet, as well as all these moves. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 moves, which to me was a little bit more complex than I was expecting, considering sort of, the vibe I'm getting from this game. But the way that basic moves are outlined is that they're told through the language of this game. So like take a gander is to look around. Scoot away is to try to escape. Brace yourself is, if something incoming harm is coming your way. Cause mischief is, craft a trap, cause a distraction, et cetera, et cetera. Console, that's kind of a cool item where you're trying to take a moment in a safe place to try to make another kid feel better. So not only are the actions or the moves in this game centered around, physical things like, progressing forward in the story by making a trap or looking around, but they are, they reinforce the interpersonal relationships of your quote unquote party, which are kind of cool. But each one of these has a diagram, and I immediately thought it would be so cool if these were on cards, because there is quite a bit. I'm sure that we get a list of moves that you can print out, like with many of the Powered by the Apocalypse games. But for example, on Take a Gander, this is when you're taking a look. You roll a plus noodle on a. I like just saying plus noodle. On a 10 plus, you choose 2 of what is below listed in bullets. On a 7 to 9, you choose 1 of them. On a 6, someone or something gives you that scare. You work with the narrator to relay what you saw to the rest of the group, but you get 1 experience point. So again, there's that positive reinforcement there. But these are definitely for the players, because these are for the players to look at. These aren't something behind a GM screen where the players just tell you what they want to do, and then the GM determines where it fits. But for instance, under Take a Gander, some of the bullet points, what you get to choose from are, you infer something important about the folks who live in the area. The narrator says what it is. Or you notice an item that piques your interest. You describe what it is, and the narrator describes how it is not quite in reach. And so that's cool. I really love the collaborative narrative tools in games like this. So it's not just the narrator or the GM just telling you what you're finding. You contribute to the story itself. And so I think that really, I'm seeing a lot more games do that. The first time I saw it, I'm going to say it again, Tales from the Loop. It's a collaborative experience. It's very much a back and forth thing. Even Death in Space, the game we're playing now, encourages it. So I think it's cool to bring the players more into the story rather than being told a story or feel like they're just sort of pawns in the story. Another one is you see someone that you could help or that could help you. You notice something dangerous that would be wise to avoid. So all of these have these things. I don't know if you want me to go to a couple of other ones. There's let's do console really quick, because that has some unique properties. So that's when you take a moment in a safe place to try to make another kid feel better, and that encourages the player to describe, like, what are you going to do? So when you roll 10 plus, your help is exactly what they need. You gain all 3 of the 7 to 9 options. And speaking of the 7 to 9 options, you feel both a little bit better, and you choose 1. You gain 1 wish, which we learned. I believe they can affect parts of the game, right? You can, like, it's kind of like a, not inspiration, but what am I thinking of?
Yeah.
But anyway, mark 1 XP, and the character you help gains +1 friendship toward you. So on a 6, describe how, or 6 or lower, describe how something or someone interferes with your attempt to heal. So it's really, again, reinforcing, like, it gives you, if you succeed on this, you get a lot of cool stuff. So it's really trying to just bring you guys, like, talk to each other, right? Don't just interact with the environment, interact with each other. And so I think that's a cool thing. But again, on all of these, every quote unquote failure, 6 or less, you get 1 XP. Sometimes you get a harm, like if something's trying to attack you, for brace yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of these things. Pretty expansive list. Before we, I guess, move on, there's a couple of other unique things here. So you can team up. So that's when you're assisting another player on an attempted move. You describe how you help them and you roll. And if you have friendship, 0 friendship toward them, you gain +1 friendship toward them if their roll yields a 10 plus. Mark 1 harm if they roll a d6. So this is where it's bringing the friendship mechanic into play. If you have 1 to 2 friendship, they can choose to re-roll one of their 2 dice, but must take the new result. And if you have a 3 or more, or 3 I guess is the max, they have advantage on the roll. And then so pursue hope. That is when you successfully resolve one of the folks' problems. Those are the people you're trying to help in these hollows, or make a significant realization about yourself. You voice it to the others, and you gain 1 hope. The move can only be performed by each player once per hollow. There's also a catchphrase. You have a specific turn of phrase you repeat often that brings joy, wisdom, humor, or eye rolls to those around you. Once per hollow, when you say it, you gain 1 wish. And here is making a wish. After rolling for a move, you may spend a wish to change the result of your roll. Yeah, so they're just like little, re-rolls. And then here what's cool is spending XP. I'm a huge fan of spending XP whenever you want, and that's exactly how it works here. So you can spend at any time. You may spend XP cost below. So 2 XP will allow you to re-roll a die. 3 XP will give you a wish. 4 XP will unlock +1 special move, and 6 XP +1 to stat of your choice. So I really like the aspect where it's not just a tiered system of leveling up, but you could distribute these however you want. Some of them are like permanent. Some of them are just, man, I really need to reroll this die. Things are looking grim. And so you can spend those doing that. But go ahead.
No, I really like this. I think it seems like a lot, but then when you read through it, I feel like there's enough things here where I don't think people playing the game really even need, if the narrator knows, I don't think the people even really need to know as much the rules list, because it could be like, well, I want to do this. And you're like, well, that's making a friend, or that's facing your fear. I really think they hit pretty much all the things that I can imagine like kids doing or trying to do for the most part.
Yeah.
And I do really enjoy that it's not just like, one of the things that I think people struggle sometimes with the Powered by the Apocalypse is coming up with what happens from 7 to 9. And I really like that this actually gives a pretty expansive rundown of the most common things that you can do or things that you should do for the 7 to 9. And I think that takes some work off the narrator.
It does, but the only thing, like I said, the only criticism I have is, like, we talk about this a lot, is that sometimes you don't want to be confined by your character sheet. So I could feel like this could really slow the game down if you have, let's say you're playing with a 10-year-old kid and they're poring over this list of 15 moves and trying to figure out what they want to do. So that'd be my only criticism. Again, though, I do appreciate the fact that it was, like you said, 7 to 9 sometimes for some people, unless you've been doing it a while and can think quickly on your feet, that's difficult to do. So they give you options here. So that's definitely helpful. But
yeah. It's cool. And I do like you just said with like, I think the catchphrase is just cute as shit, because I would definitely do that like crazy. And then the wish and the XP. There's just so many like good mechanics to to keep the game going forward. And like you said, even with failure, because spending your XP, like every time you fail, you have the option to get like a wish, which just lets you succeed on something else. So like it's just I think it's a really solid list.
It covers the gamut, I think, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Like I tried to think about things that I could do that aren't on this list without looking at it. I'm like, if I was a little kid in this situation, what would I do? And then I look at the list and go, oh, that would go into cause mischief. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so, I think, for example, if you think of like, hey, I just want to climb up into this window. Maybe I'm not running away from somebody, which would be scoot away. So I guess in that instance, you'd roll a steam.
You could just climb into the window. You know, because the rule at the beginning does say, if it doesn't really fit, just fucking do it. And especially if there's no consequences.
If there's
if it's
I guess
just a
that's
window,
right. So if there'll only be stakes if you're like, well, I guess you could be like watched, but you could, or if you're being chased, but you could also say, oh, someone might see you. So you can just do the same thing.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're trying to do, because if you were trying to go in that window to like cause mischief, there you go.
Yep.
So, and if you're trying to go in that window to get away from stuff, you roll for scoot away. So
scoot.
Yeah, just scooting.
Let's scoot on to additional rules.
There we go. So additional rules. A couple things here: using items, genius plans, and making wishes. I think those are, and more on the next page. So using items, when you describe using an item to aid in an attempted move, add +1 to your dice result, increasing the chances you'll succeed, which is a cool way to just do items. Like instead of actually having to like try to physically use the item, if it's something that's supposed to help you, you just get a bonus for it. Yep. And we talked about this before. Most items have 3 uses, represented by candy corn segments. So just color those little guys in as you use it. And when you acquire a new item during play, the narrator will tell you if it has less than 3 uses to begin with. And after its third and final use, you just erase it from your sheet completely. But any special items you begin the game with do not follow this rule and can be used as many times as you like. So my microscope, I can use as many times as you like, and your lasso, which I mean, I think a lasso in a game like this would be super helpful.
In a forest, that'd be great.
But I mean, my microscope, man, how many times can we look at something that's
really small
and make it really big?
Like, man, this thing has cells.
Such utility, you know. So anyway, and then we got a genius plan. So occasionally it will make sense for all of your kids to try tackling an obstacle together. This will likely require a genius plan, a group move where kids combine their strengths for a better chance of success. When a player declares they'll attempt a genius plan, the story hits pause with the details of the plan to sort it out. So you literally like sit around and try to figure out your quote unquote genius plan to figure something out.
Yep.
The player initiated the plan declares their intent. Each kid says how their character could help. And then you choose a move that best fits what they do with their assistants. Each kid rolls dice for the individual move, tracking successes and misses while the story is still on pause. If at least half the kids get successes on the rolls, the genius plan is going to work. If less than half, it falls apart. So it's a group. It's a
collaborative. Yeah. It's what's funny about it though is it really reminds me of, and I'm sure a lot of people listening or watching out there will know that I've played 5e plenty of times, and you'll know this, Ryan, where we get into combat. And this is exactly what happens. It's meta the hell. I mean, this isn't meta, but people are like planning and planning and planning. So that's kind of what this is. And then you just you roll, and I think what is it like? If more than half of the kids succeed, you succeed.
Yeah. And like I said, it's basically like it's a group skill challenge, basically.
Right.
Like all you got to do is get half or more. So after you resume play, you actually narrate all of your actions dialogue, and you go around kid to kid saying if you helped or hindered the plan, however it worked out, what was your contribution, whether you made it better or a little bit worse, regardless of it. And then since you know the individual successes and failures of the plan already, you can revel in the tension and drama or lean into the slapstick antics. So you know how it's going to turn out, so you can just make it up whatever you want. Genius plans should be used infrequently and only in situations such as tackling large threats. It really would slow the game down a ton. Yeah. And we've talked about this before. Depending on
it literally says pause. It says stop what you're doing and figure it out.
And just meta the shit out of the story and go for it. Yeah. I would imagine actually just like all the kids like literally being like pause, and like the monster being like, okay, I don't got all day here to blow this house down, and they like run behind a tree and like all sit in a circle drawn in the dirt, and then run back out and be like, okay, and then you just go. And then making wishes. Everyone receives one wish at the start. We talked about the different ways in which you can earn wishes, including buying them with XP, and you can store up to 2. They are powerful and exist in a space between the story of our characters and the real life conversation. So they're earned through specific moves by spending XP or by reaching certain benchmarks in your story. And we talked about this before. The wish basically allows you to realistically just choose to succeed on something, because you can decide what you want to get. Using a wish always results in your desired outcome. It is a powerful tool and should be used sparingly. The randomness of dice combined with your moves and your moves outcomes drives a story, so you don't want to disrupt it too much. Exactly like we said, a lot of the even failures and mixed successes push the story forward. So if you just choose to succeed all the time, you really kind of change the way the game is being played. So like they said, that's why you can only hold 2 at a time, period, which I think is great. I think if it's used a ton, you would almost drop it down to 1. But you can buy them with XP. So harm. Kids can acquire harm from attempting and failing particular moves or from particular story moments as dictated by the narrator. They never receive harm arbitrarily. It is always a consequence of particular actions, which is just powered by the apocalypse systems to begin with. Like its choices and consequences. When you receive harm, you mark it on your character sheet and use a word or phrase to describe the harm's nature. When you have 1 harm, you may not spend any of your XP until it is healed. I like it.
Cool.
When you have 2 harm, you receive disadvantage on all your rolls until you are healed. It's brutal for such a cute game that's like pretty quick. Right? You're getting effed. When you accumulate 3 harm, your kid is incapacitated until they are healed. So you are basically out of the story completely by just having 3 harm. So you can imagine there's not even reading through this, I don't think there's a ton of harm necessarily in the game without running into like the Fiend or the Shadows or anything like that.
Well, remember, the harm is both. It's emotional.
It's
too,
mental,
right? It's
physical, emotional. Yeah. So, we talked about spending XP. This kind of reiterates what it is at the top. We already talked about 2, 3, 4, and 6, and you get reroll a dice all the way up to +1 to a stat of your choice. For holding on to 6 XP, and your stat maxes at a +3. And you can only hold 7 at a time, so use them.
Yeah, for sure.
And then
go ahead. I was going to say I love this part again. I love the asking questions around the table to determine XP.
It's just like Death in Space. Yeah, did you do this? Did you do that? So in the session rewards, basically, like he just said, you pass that XP. Did you help someone when they were in need? Did something you did make another person laugh out loud? Did you reveal a secret of your own or keep a secret of someone else's? So there's a ton of different ways to do. But if you end the session with 0 wishes, you gain 1 wish for next time. So there's always that option of you're kind of get out of jail free card. So again, I really enjoy the rule set. And I feel like, I think we talked about this before, it feels like a little bit of a lot kind of, but I also feel like it's very intuitive
and
as well.
Yeah. Well, I think once we get to the review, we can probably talk more in detail about our thoughts on all that stuff, but yeah.
Do we want to pick, well, this is like an example hollow, or at least a situation that you could run into a hollow.
I think we should explain what a hollow is. Mm-hmm. So, just so people get it in terms of, so the way I look at a hollow, right? So it's scattered among the ever-expanding forest or small clearings, towns, homes, and other centers of respite called hollows. So I view it as like a hex crawl. There are these like waypoints in the wood. You're traveling through the wood to get to these points. And each hollow carries out a particular way of life, generally isolated from other hollows and always disconnected from the outside world. And so you're going to these places to help people out with their problems, right? And that's essentially what it is. They're populated with what are called folks, which are the NPCs of the game. If you played any role-playing games, you know exactly what an NPC is, so I won't describe that. Controlled by the narrator, obviously. I really love this final example here because it gives you almost like characteristic prompts to like to form that character. So, for example, we have at the bottom here. Meet Gretchen Bluck. She's a middle-aged human, warm, wants is in bold, to be an excellent host and to raise kids of her own. And she fears, in bold, the fiend's influence and the coming winter. So with just those two, it's kind of reminds me of like when you're trying to create a character with like the want, need, or fear, flaws and stuff. Those two attributes give you pretty much all you want, all you need to like create a fleshed out character in this world. So it's not about crazy stat blocks. It's not about crazy backstory. You literally have a want and a fear. And I think those two, opposed things are just very, it's just super easy. And that's what it kind of goes on to explain. It just says it allows you to, with those two small details, create somebody interesting. And then on the following page, they have some examples of what you might find. So when kids enter a hollow for the first time, the narrator describes the sights, sounds, and smells prominent in the area. So again, you want to, we're not dealing with pictures or video here. You got to evoke the imagination. They should make clearly what you want to do is this kind of starts to outline how you want to define these things, right? There are hollows at the very end of the book, which is awesome. But they say that there should be at least 3 story hooks for a player to investigate and potentially become entangled with. Like on page 38 to 43, there's some pre-designed ones. But what they encourage you to come up with is interesting people. So citizens of the Hollow may be eccentric, suspicious, friendly, or afraid, but they should all be available to interact with the kids. Glistening treasure, so something to go after. Hollows are always full of enticing goodies. Magical, edible, natural, artificial, etc. Events. While today may look like an old lady, today may look like any old day to the kids, it's a special day for the Hollow. A celebration, a holiday, a ritual, and so on and so forth. Noteworthy locations. Every Hollow is unique, but then some landmarks stand out more than others. Maybe weather vanes grow like sunflowers in one corner while a magnificent castle fills another. So this is a great toolkit for you to understand what you should probably be constructing your Hollow with. If you don't want to just use the ones that are at the back of the book, this gives you a blueprint essentially of what you want to do to make an effective one anyway. And then we're moving on to problems. There are two kinds. There's little problems and big problems. So these are the tasks that the folks are given to the players, what they have to deal with, and including issues they're having. They could be simple concerns, which are like little problems, like fixing a broken stove in time for dinner, to more serious troubles like finding a missing loved one. These are, like I said, they're divided into little and big problems. So generally, little problems are tasks these folks would typically handle on their own, but wouldn't say no to someone making a little easier either. Kind of like it says here, they are fun detours, so kind of a little side quest. They're not affecting the overall narrative you're trying to convey here. Like it says here, they're not the narrative shaping adventures of big problems. They tend to be received and resolved within the same Hollow. Little problems usually focus on individuals as opposed to Hollow-wide issues. So it's more like, you're going over to the old lady baking pie and there's some mice stealing her ingredients or something like that. It has nothing to do with the overall narrative. It's just kind of a little cool. It makes the world feel alive, right? It doesn't make it feel like everything is centered around this big problem. But then at the very bottom, they have another bulleted list of examples. So wanting a fresh haircut to impress a crush. That's me. Riddling all the time. Riddling a group of mice from the pantry. Finding a missing hat in a cluttered home. Overcoming stage fright before a big show. So we'll move on to big problems next. So this is when folks in a Hollow are overwhelmed, threatened, or just really upset. They are truly dealing with a big problem, and that is in capital letters. These are not as easy to resolve them, will require investigation, planning, and creative teamwork on the kids' part. So these are the main narrative focused issues you're going to be dealing with. Big problems don't always require immediate attention though. So you could let them linger a little bit. You can it's not like you need to make this decision now, but you can strategize, you can plan it to solve it over time. So some big problems will even necessitate traveling to other Hollows. Creating openings for the Fiend along the way, and we'll talk about the Fiend pretty soon. The solving a big problem often changes the status quo of a Hollow, so generally there won't be any more little problems requiring kids' attention once it's solved. So I guess it's kind of like checking off your quest list at that point. Like you don't need to go back, you've saved the day. And then again, at the very bottom, they have a bulleted list of big problems, which are finding a missing teacher while keeping students occupied, solving the case of the Hollow's chronic dessert shortage. Oh man, that is a big deal. I love dessert. Bringing back rain to the Hollow, experiencing drought, eradicating a town-wide ghost infestation. So these are just really two ways to designate tasks in a Hollow, right? Little side quests, and then the overall big problem that everybody's facing. And then that brings us to solutions. So problems don't come with pre-made solutions. I think this is something in role-playing games that it took me a little while to kind of wrap my head around when I first started out, is that, when you gamify things, you're playing a video game or something, inevitably, this was designed by somebody, there is a one way to solve a problem. Whereas in role-playing games, you have not necessarily a predetermined way. You can solve it anyways, as creative as the players might be. And so that's what it's trying to say here. There may be a seemingly obvious answer to a problem, but that doesn't mean it's the obvious to the kids. Sometimes they will even reject solutions for being too obvious. And I've run into that. I've had GMs in the past where they're like, you don't know what, oh, come on, man, you know what to do. And I'm like, I can't see inside your head, right? And so I think that's really great to reiterate this fact because, again, it's a very unique thing to role-playing games. And I particularly love this last sentence, where this story is about the kid's journey, not necessarily the destination. So it's about what happens along the way, not the goal. So I like that. But it just, again, it reminds you, hey, you might have to think outside of the box. Don't overplan. They may do the exact opposite of whatever you expected. And so just be prepared for it. So this is another making progress. This next section is pretty cool. So problems are designated by these little like radial buttons, I guess, that you can fill in and stuff. But kids are likely to collect a few ongoing problems at a time. And this is when the narrator can use a sheet like the one provided on page 52. So that's another thing we'll talk about. There's an actual character sheet kind of for the narrator in this game. It allows you to track problems and the progress kids have made toward their solution. So a problem can be represented by an objective title followed by a series of marks. So this is just telling you how you might want to jot the notes down. But a completely new problem in caps, will be paired with a number of circles representing steps of success the kids must make to solve the problem. And so a bigger problem is going to be like down here, they have a little note of problems. Find Terry's ball. There's only 2 circles they need to fill in. Build a parade float. Clearly, that's a bigger task. That requires 4 dots to fill in to succeed it. And so this is a great way, I think, for the narrator to track and even like concoct solutions for, right? What these kids need to do to solve these problems. So it says little problems begin with only 1 to 2 circles, while big problems have 3 to 5. And it goes on, what warrants filling in or adding circles is subjective and up to the narrator or a group consensus, which again is, I love the reinforcement of the collaborative narration. And while the kids should aim to help those around them, that isn't the only purpose of their journey, and solve their growing problems should not be treated as liabilities or punishments, but rather potential plot points to circle back on if players decide to. So it's great. I mean, again, it's trying to create, again, like a living, breathing world. You don't need to solve this in a linear fashion. You can bump around. Don't feel like if you failed this one time, you can't come back to it. And then at the very end, they have, they also bring up too, some problems can be time sensitive too, like making a fancy dress in time for a big dance. And there's abstractions, it says. So time in the wood is abstracted. A day could take place over multiple sessions of play. So, I mean, I think we're all pretty familiar with that. When we play role-playing games, like we kind of just wave our hands at time a lot of the time. We're like, it's been a day. It's been 8 hours. Or, yeah, let's make a week pass. And then at the very bottom, they have there's an entire section actually on narrator, I can't talk, specific advice, which is super helpful on running the game. So then I'll pass it off to you for the wood, unless you wanted to talk about anything else on that last
No, I like you said, I really enjoy a lot of the ways that they do this, and the way that they keep reinforcing the narrative nature of the game. And there's just so many good ways that that comes up again and again and again. So the wood, this is another great piece of art of two kids walking through the woods, one dressed as a spider, one dressed as a witch. There is another little blurb here. Through the woods we go, where it ends we do not know. The next hollow, far or near, will be there before our footsteps exhaust.
I know, I think it's exhaust. Yeah. These are tough to read, by the way, in case you guys didn't.
Okay.
Forgot. Yeah.
I'm gonna blow this up a little bit. We'll be there before our footsteps exhaust. Wish.
With much laughter.
And jest. Yeah, we set off on our quest. Oh, what secrets and tales we'll have shared once we've crossed, but it's not all such a lark. As the fiend creeps in the dark, so we hold hands, we hold tight. Lost one of us more to get lost. Lest one of us were to get lost.
There we go.
There we go.
The O's and the E on the cursive script. Yeah,
I can read. Kind of. Yeah, it's rough. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the wood is a mysterious place. It does not follow nature's typical rules. The sun simply stays out until it's tired, and then the moon takes its shift. When leaves fall from trees, sometimes they drift slower than you'd expect. Other times they drop like a bag of bricks. Creatures jump from one tree to another only to find themselves having landed on the same branch they just left. Mapping the wood is impossible, and there's no reliable way to navigate it. As Hollow residents will tell you, though, you'll always end up where you're supposed to be. There's a cool graphic here where it's
comforting.
Just... Oh, yeah. A cool graphic here where it's all just like squiggles, and then there's the wood, and then there's Paradiso and Lonebury and Home of the West Witch.
Yeah, this is a great, sort of a great, like, kind of hex map in a way. You know, it has these little hollows on the side, and then the wood is this, you know, tangled mess in the middle, which is cool.
Would you call this more of like a point crawl?
Yeah, point crawl. That's probably better for sure. Point crawl. And
I like how the tangle is literally just like, you don't fucking know. Like, look at all these paths, but you'll pop out. Yeah. So this is the wood, and as we talked about before, the narrator has moves, but the wood has moves too. And the wood moves are what really kind of push the story forward, and what also could make you interact with the fiend. So every hollow is connected by the wood, and whenever kids leave a hollow, they enter the wood. When the wood decides they're ready to leave, they find the next exit. I love this, like, intelligent, like, magical wood. I mean, it's just it's perfect. I mean, obviously it's the core of the setting. It's literally babes in the wood. But it's just I just love the vibe of all of it. Traveling through the wood to the next hollow requires a special move, the wood move. It is performed exactly once per exploration. Only one kid rolls a wood move between hollow. A kid may not roll the wood move again until other kids have done so. All other kids have done so. I like that. So when you wander through the wood, describe how your fear is made present, literally or figuratively, and you roll fear plus hope. So, as with everything, it's a success gradient. On a 10 plus, you see a clearing ahead and can safely emerge from the forest depths. You also notice something that seems like fun. You may choose an unmarked distraction from the list below and investigate it with your friends. So there's things like a swimming hole, flowers blooming, a wild berry tasting. So you get to go where you want to go, and you get to find something cool along the way. On a 7 and 9, the forest twists and turns before you, making it difficult to travel. Choose another kid to pull aside and confide in. They get +1 friendship towards you. Choose an unmarked topic from the following list, then mark it. When all topics are marked, erase them all and start over. So you get various things like you deeply miss something or someone back home. Another kid is making you upset. You hope to find something important to you in the next hollow. So the 7 and 9 is you're confiding something and building friendship with the people around you. And on a 6 or less, you are separated from the group and confronted by the fiend. Oh.
Which is right behind me.
Yeah.
I guess you can't really see it that well, but yeah.
Right there. Hey, you can see that one eye poking out. Right? Yeah. You are separated from the group. After resolving your prompt offered by using this move, the group immediately exits the wood into a new hollow. And on a 15 plus, you see the path that leads you out of the wood to a familiar place near your home. Characters with 5 hope may exit the wood and return home. So if you have 5 hope and you get a 15 plus on a wood move, you can get out of the wood. So a couple of things here, distractions and confiding. So the distractions are what you got on the 10 plus, and then confiding are what you do on the 7 to 9, with the 6 again being the fiend move. So distractions are fun times between hollows. These moments of wonder and goofiness are often fleeting, so kids should make the most of them. It's not quite a side quest. It's literally just a break from...
Yeah, it's like downtime,
it's downtime activities, yeah. There is no mechanical incentive to engage with the distraction. There's no need to perform moves. You simply describe the kids' actions and conversations as they have fun. So sometimes the events you encounter, folks you meet, or items you find during a distraction will set you on a longer path that points you toward a particular objective. If that path doesn't sound fun, though, you can always just go on a different path. So I like this. I like how they build in kind of like a pause in the game for everyone to kind of like decompress a little bit in between sections, especially since you're rolling fear and hope, you know?
Yeah. Well, and if you are running this with kids and not adults, I think that, because I've run games with kids, and like we were playing, like I said, Tales from the Loop, and it was just a big RP session. Like they were just having a blast, like doing absolutely nothing, and so I think, with us, we're used to like objectives and trying to move forward, but so I think this is a great opportunity for playing with a bunch of kids.
Absolutely. Confiding. When you walk through the wood, you'll be offered moments to confide in a fellow kid, strengthening your friendship while getting things off your chest. These are often dramatic moments, admitting your fears and shortcomings, or confronting someone else about theirs. So remember your safety tools when you're confiding, both from your perspective and from their perspective. These confiding moments are a key part and heart of the game. They allow you to more deeply understand the motivations of your kids and explore their relationships. Sometimes kids fight, other times they make up. Use confiding to create or ease tension in the party. We're going to say this a bunch. I really like that whole concept. Like you're forced to confide something in somebody else, and you actually build mechanical friendship in the game rules. Like you get a +1, but also, like it just said, like it allows you to kind of even out of game, because I mean, especially players that invest hard into a game, you can start to like resent another player's actions with their character, and it's a nice like in-game way to kind of give you some out-of-game release of tension, which I think is a really cool thing to do, especially if people stick to the kind of heart of it. And I mean, you have the Fiend behind you, so obviously I think you should take the Fiend.
See, I timed this out because I wanted to talk about the Fiend. Exactly. So here's I'll read this poem, because I'll let Ryan give him a break. So here is, first of all, we're looking at an awesome picture of the Fiend. It's this hulking, like, I don't know, just silhouette lurking through the wood with two wide set glowing eyes. It almost has like a Studio Ghibli vibe to it. But just like I said, all in silhouette, just kind of this long draping hair, very creepy. So there lurks in darkness unseen, in the woods and places between, tales of a fiend, a thing made of malice and sweet lies it sings, I think. A shadow that moves a little too wrong. Unlucky those... Man, I don't know what that says.
Swayed
by its song. There we go. Was that Lost or Last?
I think
Who
Lost.
It once was lost. Once who? Oh, there we goes. Who it once was, now hollow puppets doomed to be pulled by its strings. So, man. So keep safe in the wood and mind the tricks of these up to no good. Lest you face the fiend and find yourself joining into the man, what is that? The woe that it brings. The woe that it brings. Woo. Okay, those are tough. So, what is the fiend?
It takes two people.
It takes two people. So, the fiend is the embodiment of fear. We all know that fear is a big part of this game. So, it wanders the wood and manipulates both denizens and travelers for its own gain, or to sow chaos. So this thing is just lurking around. It's spoken in hushed tones. Rumors and tales of the fiend abound. Very, very few are unfortunate enough to come face to face with the thing itself. Those who do are changed, dragging panic and dismay with them to each hollow. So the fiend operates from the safety of the shadows behind tall trees and obfuscated by brush. Even when addressing its would-be victims, it prefers to be hidden or masked. So this thing isn't like rushing out into the open, like a big dragon or something stomping through the forest. It's like it's lurking in the shadows, and it's, bringing fear that way. You are only made aware of the fiend's presence when it wants you to be, which is cool. So that's by the narrator. By that point, it's often too late to escape. So the next thing is shadows. So these are kind of the minions of the fiend. So the fiend employs a network of rascals and pawns to enact its ill will called shadows. The fiend is never seen in hollows, but shadows sometimes are. So the fiend is always designated to the wood. The rascals, though, are the rascals. The shadows can get into those hollows. So when you're trying to solve problems there, which should create some cool narrative stuff. They do the fiend's dirty work, such as heckling the hollows, collecting debts, wreaking havoc, and otherwise disrupting the folks' peace. So they come in various forms, lowly beasts to full-grown adults, and anywhere in between. So tons of flexibility. You could have some creepy, like, humanoid thing, like a possessed person, a little creature, something masquerading as something else. totally up to the narrator to decide. What else? Generally speaking, the larger the shadow, the more impactful their presence, but this does not always correlate with their commitment to serve the fiend. Some are tricked into carrying out the fiend's wishes. That's cool. So they're not necessarily just blindly abiding, following his rules. They're just kind of, they've been tricked themselves. Others are tarnished by fear and anger. Others still can be rescued and brought back from the fiend's influence, which is another cool little story, plot point or quest you could have. But be wary of those who are too far gone to be reasoned with. The fiend shadows can be encountered at any stage, whether in hollows or in paths between. Some might be searching for the kids. Others might be involved with tasks of their own. In either case, shadows are a great tool for adding some tension to your story. So, these are kind of like your mini bosses. These are the things that run amok in the hollows that will probably bring a little bit more of that creepiness into the hollow. So it's not just about like getting a new haircut to impress your crush or cleaning the rats out of, Miss Mabel's pantry. But yeah, you could have some of these creepy shadows come into the hollow. So, and also the fiend and its shadows do not have stats, moves, or health points. So this is instead shadows instead complicate the problems of the group set out to solve by mirroring kids' fears. So again, a great mechanic to you can literally personify the fears of these kids. So you can take sort of what they're rolling, what their fears are at character creation, and use those to your advantage as the narrator to just poke and prod at these kids. To overcome a shadow's influence, kids must persevere and help people of the wood by being forces of goodness and light. So banish away the darkness with the light, essentially. And they thrive on their own ability to wreak havoc. And the best thing the kids can do in defiance of this hostility is care for one another and those they encounter. So again, the entire game keeps coming back to this theme of take care of each other, love each other, be good friends, be good pals, no one left behind kind of thing. And it all comes down to that. But anyway, on the next page, we have some illustrations of shadows. So these are examples of shadows. The first one is Penelope. Reminds me of Charlotte from Charlotte's Web. It's a little spider coming down. It looks like it's trying to steal some kind of casserole or something. I don't know, banana bread, whatever that might be. But she's a large spider, mischievous, wants to wrap things in web and cause panic, fears thunder and water. So wants and fears being bolded items, meaning that these are the only two terms that will allow you to create these fleshed out. Not only the folk, the NPCs, but also these shadows, which is a great technique. So you're using it on both sides. And there's just descriptions here. I won't go through all of them. But the second one is Winnipeg. It's a scarecrow, sleepy, wants a tasty breakfast and place to rest, has a never-ending itch. So that's different than a want, but that's like a definite. He probably wants that never-ending itch to stop, I'm sure. But it's kind of this somewhat creepy image of a scarecrow standing up straight. Almost looks like he's rubbing his belly, but there's some crows flying around, and he's got one eye peeking out from his split of straw hair, and he's got kind of a grin, like a toothy grin. Borgle, the final one on here, is a fisherman. He's soaking wet. He wants to fill the lake with treasures, but he has a wide range of fishing supplies. Oh, and here's also a has and a fear. So he fears breaking the fiend's contract. So again, there's a very descriptive text below each one to give you more color to what these shadows are. So that is the fiend and the shadow. So, oh no, we got to talk about fiend moves.
Oh yeah,
you want to take that? Or you
move? Nah, it's the fiend, man. You got the fiend.
All right, the fiend. So there are 4 things with the fiend that they can do. They can face off, they can find a clue, they can aha, and they can summon darkness. So face off is when you are confronted by the fiend. You roll fear, and on a 10+, your resolve is strong. While it attempts to manipulate or frighten you, you stick up for yourself, and the fiend retreats, and you get 1 hope. And so this is the same thing. We have the spectrum of success. So on a 10+, 7 to 9, there's a couple of bloated items. So for this one, it will offer you something you want in exchange for, and then you choose one. Private and potentially harmful information on another player. Acceptance of a private mission or sabotage. destruction of a sentimental item. Rejecting the offer gives +1 fear. And then finally, on a 6 or less, it makes a threat and future promise. You gain a fear and 1 XP, though, again. So all of these are like that. I'll briefly just kind of talk about the highlights of what each one means. But the next one is called Find a Clue. When you find or infer evidence of the fiend's recent presence or influence, tell the others up to 3 rumors about the fiend that scare you. Then you roll plus rumors. Then aha is when you attempt to prove the fiend or a shadow are lying or wrong, you call it out and you roll for hope. Then finally, summon darkness is when you wish to summon the fiend or shadow, declare what you hope to accomplish and what you offer them in exchange for a roll, and you gain a hope. So again, like I said, all of these have bulleted items of what you get on a 10 plus, 7 to 9, and a 6. So easy to reference. There's only 4, so that makes it easy. Mm-hmm. Yep. And they don't roll. They just the fiend just makes the moves up to the narrator, which brings us to home.
Yeah. So home. Outside the wood, our world beckons lost children to return. Mere moments after going missing, a child may stumble back into the reality in whatever condition it was left, for better or worse, as if nothing ever occurred. What has changed, however, is their perspective, influenced by the people and places they saw in the wood. So most kids see returning home as their ultimate goal while navigating the wood, but it's not easily attained. We talked about the ways in which you can exit the wood. You have to get 5 hope, and then roll 15 plus on a wood move.
Yep, to get out of the wood.
Yeah. If you are playing a multi-session game, campaign style, returning home is the finale and epilogue of your story. When rolling the wood move, like I just said, you must roll a 15 or higher to get a glimpse of home through the thick forest brush. Obviously, the 2 6-sided dice rolling 15 is not possible because you max out on 12. So you'll need to reduce your fear and increase your hope to achieve such a result. Once you've seen the path home, any kids with 5 hope may leave. So anytime you roll above a 15, so you can have a +3, right? And you see the exit, but you might not actually get to leave because you don't have 5 hope. So some kids may wish to stay in the wood forever, and that's fine. They become a woods child, which I don't remember really going over any roll table for a woods child. Maybe you just
there was no roll table for that or the toy. Which I
think on the character sheets in the back it gives the breakdown of the toy and the woods child, because you don't really need to roll because they are kind of what they are. So when you're playing the game, if you'd prefer to wrap up your story with a nice definitive ending, you can choose to just bend the rules, and not everyone has to have 5 hope, and you can just head out for a satisfying epilogue. For single session play, you may forgo the pretense of rolling the wood move when you leave your last hollow, and instead play as if every player has 5 hope and someone rolled a 15 plus on the wood move. The group or narrator will potentially have made this decision before going in. So basically, whether you're doing the campaign play or the single session, the rules fit the story that you're trying to get, and if you want to, you can always just say you have enough hope, and you can just make your way out of the story, which is, of course you can, but it's nice for the rules to tell you, give you that permission to say, I want to wrap this up in a nice single session, and not necessarily worry about having 5 hope, but still needing that 12 plus to potentially get out of there. And then there are epilogues. This is kind of the way that it all wraps up after the kids are able to leave. And I love this piece of art on the side with these kids, dressed in like this little domino mask and everything, peeking down from the woods on a hill down on this kind of neighborhood of houses, and you can just imagine the adventure that they just had. So when your journey reaches its ending, whether your kid returns home or not, each player is given the opportunity to conclude their story in a satisfying or dramatic way. Each kid rolls 2d6 before telling their epilogue, and unlike the rest of the game, keep these values separate instead of adding them together. Each will give you a prompt to interpret for 2 epilogue scenes. So for a 5 to 6, there is a moment of happiness. You describe your kid experiencing joy, and they've earned it. It can be a scene of reconnecting with your loved ones, pursuing something they always wanted, et cetera, et cetera. On a 3 to 4, you have a memory of the wood. So you describe how something that happened to your kid while in the wood still resonates with them. And then on a 1 to 2, you get a frightful shiver. You describe your kid experiencing or confronting something scary once more. This can be the fear they suffered while wandering the wood or something unrelated. And it can be a scene of confrontation, overcoming a fright, succumbing to a fear they thought they were past, a twist that implies the fiend may not be done with them, or anything else. That's obviously my favorite one. Each player delivers one epilogue at a time, going through the group in a circle one by one before performing their second epilogue. You can describe thoughts, actions, locations, and establishing shots for these moments, or you can choose to act them out in character. I really like this. This is, I mean, it's not the same, but it reminds me of the mechanic, like how in Death in Space you roll your actual true death, or how in Orbital Blues you can have like your swan song and kind of decide like the way you go out. And I really enjoy that you know, there are narrative mechanics in here to make sure you kind of, for the most part, can get the ending that you wanted from the story and really wrap up your own player's arc.
I think again it comes down to we'll talk about this coming up next, but there's sort of a 3-act structure guidance on how to craft these hollows and these adventures and these narratives. So what do you think of when you think of an epilogue? Of course, like a book, a storybook. This whole thing feels very storybook. So the themes are definitely carried into the rule set, which is really cool. I think that's super important. Otherwise, you know, you don't want to feel the rule set's so disconnected from the actual setting or the theme. But that brings us to the narrator section. So this is just a guide. You know, it's a guide for you know, both new and old GMs alike, narrators. It's guiding principles. So they are players like anyone else at the table. So this is kind of like, you know, introductory. I feel like this section is more for you know, if you haven't played a lot of TTRPGs, because most of the stuff you'll know if you're familiar with that kind of gaming. But they are appropriately lettered like the alphabet. So A is for ask questions. You want to obviously ask questions about to all the players. You don't want to just be running the show the entire yourself as a narrator. Share the storytelling process with the rest of the group being the key thing. Asking the players questions and letting their answers shape the setting, history, and people they encounter. So again, I love the like collaborative narrative. I know we've said it probably 1,000 times by now, but like that's I think it's, again, they're reinforcing that, because that honestly is kind of, for me anyway, a new thing. I haven't been really experienced or exposed to a lot of games that recommend you doing that. It's always, you know, my initial experience to role playing was second edition D&D, and so it's very much like a division between the DM and the players, whereas this is something in between. So it kind of gives you some tips on leading questions, such as like instead of ask what about the person makes you quick to trust them. So you're putting that onto the player at that point, because you could just say, oh, I feel like I trust this guy. It's like, well, what about it? And you're kind of like pulling the narrative out of the players, which is great. Or another question could be, what trait does this person have that is making you wary of what they say? So the opposite of that. And so you could say, like, you know, the kid might say, I don't know, he has shifty eyes or something. And so that is going to give an attribute to a folk or an NPC character. And you also want to ask about the kid's thoughts and emotions between moments of excitement, allowing the players to share insight into their character with the rest of the group. They might be trying to hide their feelings from the other kids in the game, but simply asking the player, how does your kid feel about this plan? So it's putting that distance between, I know a lot of times, I hear this all the time, like when I always play role-playing games, I always say, I do this. I've noticed a lot of people say, so-and-so does this, their character name. But for whatever reason, when I play games, I don't know what it is, like why I change it to first person, but I try to embody the character to a degree, and I don't separate myself. And so I think separating yourself might be a way to like pull people out of their shell in situations. And so that's what it's trying to encourage here. But B is for be a friend. Remember that everyone here is to have fun. As a narrator, you're responsible for stoking fears, creating drama, acting on behalf of the fiend, and generally antagonizing the kids. But this is not an excuse for you to be antagonistic towards the actual players at the table. We know some DMs like that. I've played some games with some us versus them, and so this is again just trying to like, hey, we're all in this to have a good time. It's not me versus you. And just try to let's keep that going around the table.
Well, that's one thing that's great about player-facing roles, and we've talked about this a bunch. Is you know when something bad happens, it's because of their role, not yours. So
they feel like they have some skin in the game rather than just reacting. But moving on, C is for conduct the narrative. So one of the most critical aspects of being a narrator is managing the pace of your story. It's very difficult to do for sure, especially when characters or players aren't sure what they're supposed to do next. You have to kind of poke and prod them and move them around to keep the narrative going. So that's really what this is trying to say. You don't want people to get bored. You want to introduce interesting folks, problems, and plot twists early and often. And a lot of this stuff you just can't pre-plan because when you play a role-playing game, it's like you're communicating between another group of yourself and another group of people, and you can't always understand like what's going to happen. The table might be dead, and so how do you inject some life or some excitement into that moment to get them more engaged? And similarly, you want to make sure you utilize time at the table efficiently. If you expect to play for a couple of hours, but the kids solve all the problems in the first 10 minutes, bring in new complications to keep them going. I think that's just sort of, it's going to take practice. If you're picking this game up for the first time and you've never run a game, just understanding how to pace things out. And inevitably, though, in my experience, I'm sure yours is the same way, Ryan, is that things always take way, way longer than you anticipate. So there's that. Moving on, D.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. D is for describe a real surreal world. So again, use sights, sounds, smells, all of these things to, we're not dealing with pictures here. We're dealing with the imagination. So as the narrator, it's up to you to make sure you convey that to the players so they can paint the pictures in their mind. E is for extend multiple opportunities. Each hollow presents a lot of choices for kids to make, but there should never be a right and wrong path as long as the players are having a good time. So this goes back to some advice earlier on where it was there, think on your feet. You can't, there's not like a binary solution here, right? It's just like, or a single solution. It's just, maybe there's multiple things. And I've noticed this tons of times when playing where somebody will come up with a clever idea and I'm like, holy shit, yeah, I'm not going to take that away from them. See how it plays out. So that's just to make sure you don't imagine there's only one path, right? And I think, again, because of video games and board games, sometimes there's only one way to solve a problem. So it's just trying to remind you, like, ttrpgs are different. So F is for frighten when appropriate. This game is intended to take place on Halloween, a day for celebrating scares. Kids bring in fears as part of their characters, because we know that's a massive part of the game. Though the intensity and tones of these will vary widely for different player groups. So, just know your audience, essentially. I think this helps. It says at the bottom here, like, revisit lines and veils or cats from the safety tools on page 4 to 5. That'll help kind of shape this aspect. G is for go with the flow. Again, so try as you might, you will not be able to predict how players will react to your plot hooks every time. Instead of getting disappointed or trying to shoehorn your story into the game, otherwise known as railroading, just say yes and let the kids forge their own path. So I think that I personally, when I run games, that's the one I have the most fun. When they do something completely different I did not expect. And not only that, but the players having a blast because they feel like they're not on rails. They don't feel like there's a predetermined path. And they're just kind of like, okay, I'm following these obvious plot points, but they're doing something different. And that is going to make them so much more engaged in the game.
Well, that's what we've talked about this a bunch. This is why we like hex crawls and point crawls versus something like a 5e adventure. Like, there's already a beginning, a middle, and an end written out. So realistically, all you're doing is pushing the characters through like a pre-written narrative. What real consequential choices do they have when the ending is already already determined at the end?
Right.
But instead, if you just give these hollows, these points, these kind of random rolls in between, what human beings do is create a story. Yep. We make inanimate objects look like people. We create stories out of like these disparate moments. It's just the way it goes. So as you just said, like, being able to put a narrative together at the end and see how it all kind of played out through the randomization is a lot more fun when you feel like you're the one writing the story, not a character in someone else's written story.
Exactly.
So
yeah. So good advice for sure all around. And I mean, you could take that advice like to any game, honestly.
Of course, yeah. Next up, we got narrator moves. We talked about this before. The narrator actually has moves and a character sheet, which is interesting. The narrator primarily describes the setting, the actions of the folks, the fiend, and the shadows, but they have moves at their disposal to keep the story moving as well. Narrator moves don't require dice rolls, they simply happen, and the kids react accordingly. So some of the moves here are reveal the fiend's presence. You introduce evidence that the fiend is nearby. Entice, introduce an item, opportunity, person in need, or something else appealing. You can ask about feelings, refresh, call back, cut away, plant clues. You know, this is an interesting way to do this, because basically this is story prompts.
Yep.
But exactly. It's really interesting that the way that they turned those story prompts, instead of just like maybe a list or a table, into these moves. And I think I really like it. I think it's clever, especially like we said, there's a lot of this parts of these games that is clearly written for kind of like first time GMs.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really clever way to give people a springboard to bring in these kind of like plot points or things like that in a way that is easily digestible for someone that's never done it before. So instead of having to like write the story, since we already just talked about not having to write the story, you can just be like, okay, I'm going to choose to create some danger and like bring something a little bit into it. So most moves have story beats built into the 6- results. Move to elaborate. Work with the player who rolled the move to elaborate on these prompts and decide what to do next. So if we actually go to the narrator sheet, so this is just an example.
Before we move on really quick,
sheet.
I wanted to say again, this reminded me of how cool this would be as like a little deck of cards. Imagine like the kids roll a 6 or less, and you have this fanned out cards of the, you know, of these narrator moves. And they're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And you just slam it on the table. Yeah. I think it would be cool.
We'll have to get it for 3E. This is technically 2E, but you could easily copy paste this onto some printout cards.
For sure.
Like you just said, I think that'd be a great way to do it, and especially if the kids actually had, like, if you wanted them to know all their moves, and they had all their little moves like right in front of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, pull a little 4E into it. You know, give them some stuff at the table. So this is a little breakdown of the narrator sheet, and again, a lot of the character sheets and stuff in the back, and we'll get to those very shortly. We're cruising towards the end here. So being a narrator can sometimes feel like a lot of responsibility. Luckily, kids will often excitedly take the story in directions you could never expect on their own. You will frequently just need to react to their actions. To aid in this, you can use the narrator sheet. So that's the whole point, is you you're not a character, but it uses the same concepts in the game, like moves and the sheet and things like that,
right,
to simplify the part of the storytelling that you do, which is just reacting and pushing the story forward, not writing the story.
It tracks all the players, so it helps you keep track of all the things that are going down. So different, but definitely cool, I think, for someone who might feel overwhelmed running a game for the first time. And I'll be honest with you, like when I run a game, like I kind of rely on the players to remind me of like abilities they have and items they have, because like there's no way I'm going to track all that stuff, you know, especially for a more complex game. But this is a great sort of way to get you in the habit of, like, you know, knowing what, you know, bits of information are going to be helpful for you.
Yeah. I would steal this whole section and like the moves and everything. I mean, it's a really clever way to keep from those like silent moments, you know, when you just get dead space. You know, you can just click on a narrator move. You can see what the characters have already done. You can do all those kind of things. I think this would be great for any type of these like improv games that put a lot of impetus on the narrator, because I think that's the biggest like barrier to people getting into Powered by the Apocalypse or post Powered by the Apocalypse games, is the amount of improv. It puts a lot of impetus on the GM to really come up with like cool stuff and really interesting things. So having this basically what amounts to a cheat sheet to do that, I don't think is ever going to be a bad thing. And I'll probably, at least in some way, shape or form, use this for these kind of narrative driven games going forward. I think it's a great idea and a great way to do it. So the narrator sheet has A, B, C, D, and E parts. A at the top left is you have an area to keep track of your game's kids. So next each name, you write down their fear and hope for quick reference. So quick reference sheet for all of your characters. And I used to do that when we did our home game. I actually had the top of the GM screen. It was everyone's picture, but on my side of it, it was like their AC, their hit bonus, and some way that I wanted to fuck with them, just on the back. Same kind of concept, just in a sheet. So it's a great way to do it. So quick references for that. In the B section, below the kids section is an area for tracking the folks you create. So basically, you can, as you come up with Bob or Jim or Bill or any of the other random people you run into, you can just quick write it down.
Yep. So then, useful for sure, all around.
Yeah. C, next to the folks area, lives a space to track problems. So as we said before, there are little problems and big problems. So you can easily write those down so that you can keep track. Basically, it's your side quest log. D is the last thing on the left half of the narrator sheet is a table for quickly generating new folks and locations. So quick reference. And then finally, on the entire right half of the sheet, you have the list of narrator moves for easy reference. So this is basically part GM screen and part like game log is what it all comes together for. So we have a couple of sections here. One, do you want to go over composing a problem?
Yeah, let's do it. So composing a problem, this essentially allows you or helps you, aids you in crafting a problem. So the bulk of your work as a narrator is creating and pacing a satisfying story despite unpredictable characters. This is an easier task than it sounds, though, so don't fret. So it's always, you see this Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, these three columns sort of giving you the bones of what you want to, how you want to create a problem or story. So they give you a guide, which is great because, people coming into this may not be storytellers. So I write stuff a lot, so I appreciate this fact. And I know we've had a lot of discussions on our Discord. If you're not on our Discord, totally join it. Small plug. But how people view role-playing differently. So you'll have games like Critical Role where they're running, where it's very, very narrative-driven. It feels like you're a participant in a story. And then there's other games where it's all up to the players and you're just you set into motion some key areas. Like in this game, it would be these hollows and these problems in these hollows. And it's up to them how to solve it. And so I know there's very different viewpoints on those things. Some people want to just be a character in a story. Other people can't stand it because then it feels like a 5e module, right? But anyway, it's trying to help you craft these things. So these are very loose explanations, but actually they're pretty detailed. But for Act 1, we are introduced to our setting and the people therein. We learn about problems that need attention. That's very classic storytelling. It's like day in the life. What's going on? What are the problems of the characters? But then below that, it says offer at least 3 branching options on page 19 to entice your players. But also be prepared to improvise because you have no idea what's going to happen. Once the kids have an understanding of the setting and situation, you can present a problem finally. So once you've established all this stuff, present the problem at the end of this Act 1. Work with the players to make clear what their goal is and what is at stake. If it's time sensitive, make that known before they begin, so they're not caught unawares, obviously. Similarly, when problems have the potential to spin out of control, warn players a particular issue is tied to danger, the fiend, or other important hazards. Then we move on to Act 2. This is when the kids pursue their goal. So this is a call to adventure. They have taken the task at hand. They're going to interact with the setting in pursuit of an objective. So most of this game is going to take place in Act 2. You could seriously divide this into Act. I kind of like Act 4 acts, but Act 2 is where the meat of everything happens. So this is where the kids will most frequently be using their moves and rolling dice. So this is really most of the game. So whereas Act 1 is a shorter thing where you're introducing the setting and the characters and the problems, Act 2 is where you're going to get a lot of the interaction. The second act of the session is when the kids are faced with adversity and either double down and overcome that adversity or abandon their goal. Neither path is wrong, so don't penalize players for choosing a certain course of action. So again, it's reminding you as a narrator, if things don't go your way, if you sat there for weeks and weeks and wrote out this meticulous campaign, don't get pissed off if it doesn't go that way. So, I mean, or just stay away from that kind of writing anyway. A variety of problems will always make the wood feel more lived in as well. So it's encouraging you to create, not just kind of a one-note story, but just have a lot of different things. And then finally, Act 3 brings us to the problem has payoff, a twist, a goodbye, or other satisfying resolution. So you will begin to sense when a story has reached its natural conclusion. If attempting to solve a problem, the final stages of that solution tend to be the ending. So, and I failed to mention this, but in the opening paragraph, it says, hey, you got to make this amazing plot twist, crazy story, epic adventure for these players, but don't worry about it. And I completely agree with this because I didn't read the next sentence, but he says, you've likely read enough books, watched enough cartoons, or been exposed to enough stories to know how they work without even realizing it. And as humans, we are just, storytelling is probably one of our oldest attributes we've had. It's literally in our DNA. Why do you think we love movies and books and video games and role-playing games so much? It's because it's how we communicate, it's how we escape, it's all these things. So don't fear if you have any kind of reservations or like imposter syndrome. Just rip off an anime or a movie or something. Just take plot items from that, or a book, whatever it is, comic, anything. And then as you'll start to slowly see how everything has a pattern and all of these relationships and how they interconnect. And then by then you won't need to be quote unquote borrowing, like what's his name, Austin Kleon says steal like an artist, something like that. So always, don't ever feel bad about borrowing story elements for something else. But that's a long way of saying, here's a 3-act structure. Here's what those 3 acts should be composed of. And, but you can mix it up at the very bottom. Different stories will follow different structures. So don't worry if your adventure doesn't adhere to this one. So again, as many role-playing games do, they always encourage you to just don't think like this is the hard rule. Like you can break this rule, you can add to it. Which brings us finally to an interesting section called playing without a narrator.
You can just keep on going.
Oh, keep going.
If you like the section, go for it. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So your group may decide that no one wants to be the narrator, or that you are comfortable enough with role-playing games that you can forge ahead without one. Fortunately, Babes in the Wood can be played without a formal narrator by using a special shared moves called shadow moves. So in this mode of play, everyone is encouraged to add setting detail and collaborate on creating folks and hollows. You can all reference the narrator moves list and perform those when appropriate, both acting as your kid characters and helping to direct play. To introduce additional drama and conflict, however, use shadow moves. So the shadow move list, as we've seen, is on page 51. It's in tiers that unlock as your kids push forward in their plans. Or no, we haven't got to 51. Sorry, it's later on. Some of these moves are new and exclusive to this mode of play, so be sure to read through them, even if you've played the game before. There's a 0 tier. It's unlocked at the start of play. They're always available to all players along the list of. Anyway, we'll talk about it once we get to 51, I think. And then any player who can use an unlocked shadow move at any time, but you must use a shadow move from the highest unlocked tier whenever a player rolls a 6 or less on a move. Most basic and special moves include prompts for what happens when a player rolls 6. So it's cool that you can play this game without a quote unquote dungeon master, game master, So if you have a bunch of friends and you're like, man, I don't want to run the game, I just want to be a kid, you guys can all get together and do that. And the shadow move tiers reset whenever the kids exit a hollow, allowing for fresh starts and a break in tension. Erase all of the marked pips on the shadow moves track and begin again with tiers. So this whole page is just kind of a list to follow when you're playing without a narrator.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
I really like the way that a lot of games do things like this. Like, here's the game, here's it without a narrator, or even a lot of doing like, here's the game for solo play or things like that. It's really enjoyable that there's a lot of these games are giving you multiple styles to play. It's not just you have to do it this one way. Here's, especially in the world we live in now, there's a variety of different ways to play with a variety of different people, and it's really cool to see that kind of proliferating more through TTRPGs, which is neat.
Yeah. So it's kind of between it's kind of like a board game in a way, you know. Board games are usually collaborative. If you're playing a story based, I guess I could say, you know, one of those kind of like in between role playing games and traditional board games where it's like you're just more, it's collaborative, and I feel like that fits that mark or hits that mark.
Yeah, absolutely. The next section jumps straight into some hollows.
Yeah.
So we have Lonebury, which is interesting. There's a cool art here. It's a grumpy looking kid with a basset hound next to some water. Lonebury is kind of neat. We don't need to go through all of these. I liked Morning Gate more. So we can touch on Morning Gate a little bit just to give you this breakdown of what like a hollow looks like. So, I mean, these are the points on the point crawl. So this is really kind of your adventure hooks or your little mini adventure settings as you go through. So Morning Gate is a crafty and clever hollow dotted with makeshift shacks, trembling treehouses, creepy cottages, and wobbling warehouses held together with string, rusty nails, and whatever else could be found. Many of the buildings are connected to one another with precarious suspension bridges hanging from branches of tall trees above. And during the day, the citizens effortlessly swing on ropes and climb ladders. At night, the buildings on the ground bustle with ghosts and phantoms, going about their unlives in the hollow that never sleeps. So there's a lively commons, which is a bustling, aptly named central district. During the day, it's easy to get stuck in traffic on a swinging pedestrian bridge. But folks here leave the hallowed ground below to the undead out of respect for long-standing treaty. There's two types, it says, the daywalkers and the night dwellers, and they're very territorial there. So problems you could face here. Folks need to get to the castle on the hill without touching the ground. It's a big problem. Levi Tattenbaum, the portly possum food vendor, once a chef accolade, has incredible cooking skills and is missing an expected delivery of fruit. It's a little problem. And then Eliza Madsen is a foal that is delicate and fears heights and wants to join the party and is moving to Morning Gate but unsure about living in the trees. And this is a little problem. Again, little problems are usually individuals and big problems are usually town-wide. So that is the day and the day problems. And at night, after sunfall, the buildings on the ground open up to a different and less opaque audience as the spirits of the hollow come to life. Concerts of rock and roll under the stars while the folks above sleep softly. So problems that these night dwellers can face. There's a skeleton band, a 6-piece rap rock band, loves to push the creative envelope, fears conformity, and receives a noise complaint. Ooh.
Rap rock, what?
Rap rock. We got corn in here. Curly, a snake knot creature with many heads, wants to be everyone's friend, wants to get comfortable in their skin, is invited to the party but is afraid of ghosts. And that's a little problem. Get over it, Curly. The sun is coming up and the party shows no signs of stopping. That is a big problem. So these people are just rocking too fucking hard.
Yeah, too hard, man.
You know how to fix that problem?
Those no complaint. What?
Yeah, you just tell them to fuck off and keep rocking. I don't know what the problem is here. So also in this is the castle on the hill. It is the business and busyness of Morning Gate, and is mostly confined to the lively commons. But disconnected from this system of swings and suspension due to disrepair is a further out lone stone fortress called the Castle on the Hill. It also has day and night problems, and there's various characters associated with the problems. I think there's a really, really cool ways to do these point crawl. I like the introduction of the NPCs, the introduction of the large and small problems, and even the day and night issues in it, which is interesting because again, the sun goes down when it decides to. So whenever the narrator decides to. Mm-hmm. So I really like the way that these are laid out and are just bristling with potential hooks with the big problems and small problems. And you can think of 10 other things associated with those too if you wanted to keep going with it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's Whitley Den, which, has some great art of some bear playing a tambourine and some wolves.
The bears and wolves are hanging out. They're best buds.
And a deer has a horn. There's
a
guitar over here.
Oh, yeah, because it's a spread, yeah.
Yeah,
got a trumpet?
We don't do that. Do you want to create a hollow real quick, or do you just want to move on and say there are tables here to create your own hollow?
We could roll really quick. Let's see here. What do we got? We got
roll.
So a D6 for
Will it be 2d6, right?
This is the name, yeah, 2d6.
Yeah.
So 2.
So berry. And then what's the second half of it?
I got 4 and a 2. Oh, the other half. Okay, let me roll it again. I got 6.
6 and what?
6 and 5.
Berry Falls.
Berry Falls. All
Berry
right.
Falls.
And what is Berry Falls known for? Let's see.
Roll
here.
it out.
What are they known
Let's see.
for?
So 3d6.
Oh, 3d6. Oh, they're known for. Well, I can do about one by one. So 4. So culture, daytime, and it's currently daytime, and the weather is stormy.
Ooh.
And then our town is full of humans, boring,
Gross,
who reside in makeshift tents. Whoa, this is sounding like where I live right now. And who love dessert. So it's a tent. It's a bunch of people in tents who love dessert.
It's tent city. Yeah.
Yeah, tent city.
But it's getting stormy, so it's not like where we're at. But you can already see some problems popping up for a tent city in storm.
The next page is even problems.
Yeah.
Role problems, folks names, shadows. So you can generate a problem really easily.
Do all sorts of
stuff.
This is
very, very familiar if you play any OSR, old school games that are built on tables. So this is awesome that they've included this in a more modern game.
So the next we actually get into the playbooks, the full character sheet playbooks here in the back. They're all like fully filled out with all the things that you need, and you would just put in your name, your age, your looks, and then fill in the games as it go. So let's just pick one of these. Do you want to go with toy, since that's the one you wanted to do, and we'll just do toy?
Yeah, let's talk about toy.
So we got through Big Kid. There's Little Kid here, which is fully fleshed out. Like I said, there's Critter here, and then there is Toy. Choose one during setup for your special move. So I assume there's Sense and Tension, Admire, Craft, and Come Apart at the Seams. You can pick one of those 3 things. What are you shooting for? Intention, Admire, Craft, or Come Apart at the Seams?
Oh, let's see. Admire, Craft. When you examine something on non-constructed, describe what you're looking at for one day. I don't know. Come apart at the seams when you detach part of your toy.
That's creepy. Let's go with
cool.
That
I like that one. Yeah.
So come apart at the seams when you detach part of your toy. Roll plus Steam. Yeah. So on a 10 plus, it becomes a special item for whomever keeps it. So pop out an eyeball, drop like a hand, or whatever. On a 7 and 9, it becomes an item with 3 uses, but irreparably breaks after that. And on a 6 minus, it becomes an item with 3 uses and irreparably breaks after that. You maintain your connection to it, and it hurts to be detached. Mark 1 harm and 1 XP.
This fits my creepy doll idea, so I think
the little porcelain doll thing. What piece are you dropping off your creepy porcelain doll?
I mean, it's got to be an eye, right?
I mean, that would make it creepier.
Yeah.
And then the little shadow spider can come in and get in your little eye socket.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think with the toy, you pretty much just you already picked the doll, and that's what you get. And then there's questions here at the bottom to flesh out the character. So you belong to your best friend, a child who is not part of your wandering group. How do they make you feel? Where are they now? Choose a trait your best friend has that you hope to emulate. Understanding, humor, courage, creepiness. You are drawn towards whatever power in the wood grants you life. Is this beckoning, enticing, or frightening? What do you hope to find at its source? And each kid in your group reminds you of your best friend in their own way. Describe how and gain +1 friendship towards each of them. Look at that. So it's a cool sheet. I think it's really well laid out. I think there's a lot of space on it. And the things that you fill in look like they all fit pretty easily. I think it's cute as fuck. I really like the color pops. I really like all the candy pieces. I really like how the XP is like the candy wheel here. It almost looks like the clock mechanics in some games and things like that. I think I already talked about how freaking clever the delicious candy corn are. So the whole thing is really cool. And it's got all of those, including the shadow moves, which is, do you want to go over the shadow moves, or are we just going to kind of breeze those?
I mean, this is just kind of a, oh yeah, this was on the page 51, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, shadow moves, really cool layout here where we have the fiend in the background and these just kind of like brush stroke white areas where everything, all the moves are listed. So when a kid attempts a move, fill in the next open pip. When that attempted move yields 6, fill another. A tier's move becomes available when the pips above it are all filled out. So this is what we're talking about with solo play, where you have a tier 0, use it any time, and there's a series of different moves. Embody folks. Describe the looks, thoughts, speech, actions, and reactions of the folks in the hollow. Describe your surroundings, detail locations, events, items, folks in the immediate area. Present a problem, highlight an issue present in the hollow that the kids might be able to resolve. Cutaway describes actions and events happening elsewhere in the wood where the kids aren't present, which is cool. It's like a film, right? You're not always in the POV character. Ask about feelings. Ask a fellow player how their kid feels when something happens in the story. And then tier 1, you reveal the team. I won't read these all in detail, but tier 1, things are getting more intense. So reveal the fiend's presence. You're giving hints that the fiend is about to appear. Create danger. Offer hard choice. Then finally, moving down to tier 2, we have shadows, dark, and worsen the kid's situation. Remove a path, introduce a worsening hazard, etc. And scare, introduce an aspect of a kid's fear into the scene, literally or figuratively. Finally, tier 3 is ruin solution. You add a complication, time sensitivity, or other setback that makes a pending problem harder to solve. And then finally, at the very end, we have the fiend's touch. Send a shadow directly to interfere with or attempt to undo the kid's progress. So, like I said, all of these have pips, and then when you fill them up, you move down. So
there you go.
That is
it's a really cool way to do solo to the non-narrator play. You know, you basically turn a lot of those narrator moves into a lot these shadow moves, and just with failure you continue to move on, which is great. Here's a narrator sheet we talked about. You know, it's basically a GM guide with a little bit of tracking options on it right there. And that is Babes in the Wood. That's Babes from Worldchamp Game and Adam Vass. Wander the mysterious eternal wood. Help the strange folks you meet in varied hollows with problems big and small. Forge deep friendships. Face your fears. Confront your feelings. Avoid the fiend. There we go.
And it's a very familiar children's book format too. It's in like this square shape. So
yeah. Again, I wish I would have dug through and actually found it. It's a great looking book. And so it's a really good, like, well formatted book. One thing I want to kick over to real quick. I'm going to bring up the Kickstart the Podcast segment or section, but I'll just hide that little thing at the top so we can bring it up. But it is the Kickstarter for this. I wanted to bring that up real quick. Which one is Google Chrome? Come here. That's not what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, so this is the actual Kickstarter when it first came out for this, and I don't know how I missed it. But what I really want to point out is this special edition package that came with it. Look at this. And I don't know how I missed this. Oh my god, look at how cool this is. So it comes in this it's a square hardcover book just like normal, but it comes with this cloth wrapping around it, which is the background behind me. It comes with this cutout mask to wear.
Is it a pillowcase?
I think so it says cloth bound is what it says for like the special edition.
Oh, because that would have been cool if it was a pillowcase, like you're going around with
and
candy.
You're holding all of it. Yeah. The hardcover book wrapped in custom cloth and includes, I mean, let's just say it's a pillowcase. It includes goodies like limited enamel pin. Love me some enamel pins. An embroidered patch, which looks really cool. It's got this lantern on it, like the one that the girl's holding, and on the patch it says, "Is that wow?"
I need to zoom in here.
I think it says, "Bear the light of hope among the shadows." So have the torch. It's got these awesome jack-o'-lantern 2d6s. And like I said, it comes with a mask. So between the pin, the patch, and the dice, I'm just saying there's only 100 of these out there. If you are one of them and you ever find yourself on the podcast and you shoot me a tweet at the Weekly Scroll and let me know, and I will snatch any part of these from you to add to my vast Worldchamp game collection. I'm not kidding. Tweet me.
He buys everything. He's not kidding. He's really.
First of all, they're awesome. First of all, they're awesome too. Halloween's my favorite thing, and we got a Halloween game from one of my favorite creators. And then there's enamel pins and patches and dice. I mean, come on. So I know they're out there. Somebody somewhere is going to listen to this. At some point, I will own these things. Help me out. Help me out. So we're going to kick over to the game review screen here, actually. And so we can wrap this up. So Babes in the Wood, as I do almost every time, we're going to do a quick explainer. There are 5 things that we judge a game on. Each one is rated up to a score of 10, with 5 being average, which is not bad. It's just average. First is art and style, and that's actually like the art in the book, both the quantity and the quality, if it fits the vibe of the game and things like that. The layout and function is the layout as in its readability, not its like how pretty it is to an extent. And function are the ways in which you can read the book both physically and digitally. A lot of it is lean on digitally because we're reading it digitally. So hyperlinks, table of contents, bookmarks, and in a book format, things like ribbons and things like that can help you reference sections better. Rule set and crunch is if it's a unique rule set, is it good? And if it's an adapted rule set, how well is it adapted? Crunch is, does it feel like the right amount of rules for the game? And if it says like rules light, is it actually rules light? Originality is across kind of like all of those things, like how original is the setting, how original are the rules, how much is kind of out there and how different is it from other things you've played. And value is the bang for your buck, not just the flat cost, but it's how much you get for it. Are there third-party licenses? Are there, character sheets? Are there extra bonus content and downloadables that you can have to make it worth what it is, So those are the things that we go for. So first, we're going to start with art and style. What's your opinion on the art and style?
I think it is very appropriate to this. That's one thing about this entire book. It's very, it's shaped like a children's book, right? It's in that square format. Right. The artwork looks like children's book artwork. So I think there's enough of it, I don't think it's like lacking in art. The one downside is I wish those poems were a little bit more readable because they're great. Like once you figure them out, they're great. They like set the tone. As far as the score goes, I'm kind of like 7-ish to 8-ish, maybe. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that's where we're at. First of all, I think the art itself, just as art, is really, really well done. Like even if you just look at the cover, like it kind of has a simplicity to it, but then the longer you look at it, like all of the shadows, all of the backgrounds, there's layers within the background.
It's more
even looking at the jack-o'-lantern.
Sure. Yeah, the cover is painterly, yeah.
And even the faces on the kids, like again, like the style is a little bit simplistic, but even the expressions that we talked about, like look at the big kids, they kind of have this like weird, like kind of look on their face, and you really pull a lot from it. So I really, really enjoy the art a lot. I think that it sets the vibe and tone perfectly, and I think it's really well done. There's not consistent. Big stretches.
There's one artist, which I appreciate. Yeah. I kind of, I mean, I know it's always a money thing, but like I love it when there's a single vision throughout the entire thing, and that's what's here.
Absolutely. So when a lot of times we'll do this in context and reference to other things. So when we look at some of the 8s and 9s out there, we gave Death in Space a 9. just because the art is fantastic, and then the adaptations of a lot of the vector stuff are fantastic. Yeah. Viking Death Squad had a 9. Kingdoms had a 9. Orbital Blues, for a lot of the ways that they did their art, was a 9. The only book that has a 10. Yeah, well, Warpland is basically an art book, and that got a 9. The only one that we ever gave a 10 to was Merkborg, but it's literally like an art book you can play.
It redefined what an RPG book can be, so it deserves a 10.
Yeah. So I'm at least a solid 8 on this when I compare this to things like Orbital Blues or like Gun and Slinger.
Well, I think too, you need to take into account not just like, do you like the art or not, but is it appropriate for what it's trying to convey, right? And I feel like it's doing that. It feels like if I were to pick this up, I'd think it was a children's book. It's shaped that way. The art's reminiscent of it. So whether or not you like it, I think is a different story if it's a subjective thing, but it's definitely consistent with the vibe that they're trying to create. So
yeah, and that's a huge part of the art and style is the consistency, and the style. That's the style part of it. Like, does the style fit the game and everything like that? So, what are your thoughts between? Cause I think you said 7 to 8. I'm between 8 and 9. What do you? What do you?
We'll just I guess we'll just have to meet in the middle then. So I probably leave it. Yeah, let's just say 8. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
I hate going too high with things because then something inevitably comes out later and you're like, oh shit. And it kind of it's kind of like when you guys redid all of the reviews again, you know?
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is we reserve the right to tweak numbers, and we have,
sure.
You know, there's some other things that are, but you know, we have a lot of 8s, a couple of 9s and 1 10. So that's one of the reasons I like bringing up the old scores and going through like in context. Yeah. Well, is this better than Gun and Slinger? Is this on the same level as far as vibe and things like that? So,
yep.
So moving on to layout and function. So right off the bat,
we know where you're going with this.
There's no hyperlinks. There's
no hyperlinks.
So and that kills me. And not only are there not any hyperlinks, there are actually no bookmarks at all in the entire thing too, which a lot of like things just naturally create bookmarks. Like if you create a doc in Google Docs, it automatically creates an index. It reads it. So to not have hyperlinks or bookmarks, at least from a digital standpoint, is a big miss from my perspective. Especially this came out it kickstarted in I think the beginning of 2021. So we were deep in the pandemic. A lot of people doing more digital stuff. And again, you know me, it's a digital world. A lot of people I love to hold the physical books and I love to read through the physical books. But when I'm digging through it, the accessibility in the PDF and the ease in which you can work your way through it is super important, especially if I was running this as an online campaign. Like just being able to like click, just scroll up real quick and click a button on the index makes it super easy. So that's huge. But as far as the layout goes, I mean, super readable. Like
it's very clean. I guess I'd wonder like how this would be at the table, because all the headings are the same. I'd wonder if like designating the different sections with different color coding, kind of. I mean, I know we keep talking about these games, the same games over and over, but Death in Space, how it has very distinct color coding to it, and so it's easy to navigate. This one, it's all the same, so all the headings are the same color, same typeface, so could be a little bit difficult to use at the table, but again, it's very readable. It's a clean layout,
no ribbon, and then no digital hyperlinks.
But it's a short book. It's a short book, though. So
yeah, I mean, and the thing is, the book, since it's a kind of a square book, it does lay well on a table too. You know what I mean? So like, it's nice in that fashion. But like you just said, Death in Space, one of the best ones ever. I mean, literally the fact that each section is color coded to each heading section is different. The only one that does it better. The only one that does it better, and the only one that will always forever do it better, is Troika, who literally has different color pages in each section.
So you can see it while it's closed.
It's crazy.
Right on the edge.
Yeah. So layout and function. I mean, again, as far as the layout goes and the readability and all of those things, I think it's great. I don't think it can get much better for having it like super clean. Like aside from the calligraphy, which I honestly view as more of like an art piece than any type of. For sure. Yeah. I think it's laid out really well. It's just the function that takes a couple of hits for me, and it really is the lack of any digital tools at all. So for me, I mean, I think it's laid out. I personally think it's laid out a little bit better than average. I really like the way that they do like the character sheet explanation pages where they have like the dots on it and really guide you through the page. I really enjoy that. So I think it's better than average. But I think, you know, it takes a hit for no hyperlinks, a hit for no bookmarks, and a hit for one or two other things. So I'm probably like 6-ish on this.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair.
Is that about where you were thinking? Or
I was thinking 6 to 7, just because, again, the only downside is the hyperlinks. And then, again, I don't know how usable it would be at the table, but it's a very short book. So, I
mean, I'm good with a 7 on this too, just because, I mean, it is laid out beautifully and functionally.
It's not difficult to read. So,
yeah, let's just go with 7 on that. I just, man, if just hyperlinks and bookmarks, then this would really.
Yeah.
All right.
Bring it up.
Rule set and crunch. I mean, so it's basically powered by the apocalypse. I mean, it never pretends to not be powered by the apocalypse. The first person in the mentions is literally the creator of Apocalypse World for you know what they got it from. But I think they do powered by the apocalypse in a really good way. Like I've seen a lot worse playbooks. That was a bad way to say it. I think the playbooks are better than a lot of the ones I've seen before. I think the moves list is. At first, when you were like, there's just a lot, I'm like, you know what, there really are a lot. But as we read through them, I'm like, but you know what, they're very intuitive.
They are, but that kind of brings me down. It brings me to what we were talking about earlier is like, who is this game for? Is this game for adults to, like it Tales from the Loop, where it's mostly made for adults to play, have a nostalgic adventure, right? Or is this for kids? Because I still feel like there's a lot to digest if it's kids around a table. That's kind of why I was bringing up the card thing, or maybe like you said, there's a way to just, I don't know. And really it comes down to the bulleted, and I know like it's all good intentions, and I appreciate the sentiment of being like, hey, let me make this easy so you don't have to make up stuff on the spot, but it's just a lot. And these are for the players. These aren't for the narrator, right? So that's kind of my one criticism, I think, is that
at the same time though, I think that, you know, we talked about this a little bit before it started. I think that, you know, it'd be difficult to write. If you were writing this for like 8-year-olds, half this book would be gone. So I'd rather have it written for like an older audience. Like as an adult, I could enjoy the shit out of this game, but I could also adapt this really, really easy for kids. And one of the things I would honestly do if I was playing with a kid, I would never give them a moves list.
No,
I would just ask them what they would want to do, and then I would pick the move that most associates with it. And I think that's the easiest way to do it. Super easy to do it.
Well, and that's what I mean, though. That's why I was kind of confused as I was reading toward it, because like we were saying, I was reading, I'm like, oh, I can see who would play this, and then it would kind of like I'd read another section, and it would kind of throw me in the other direction, and so I was really back and forth, and so I'd love to know like who is this book for? You know, like
we'll have to ask Adam. Maybe we can get him on the show sometime. We'll just be like, hey, when we were on Babes in the Wood, no, this is a question we had. But as far as the rule set and stuff goes, I mean, it's beyond the moves, beyond the rest of it, I think that the wishes are incredible. I think there's so much of it that's incredibly just clever. I think the XP spending is really good. I think the wishes are really good. I think the narrator moves, which are part of the game, but are also kind of in the functionality a little bit too, is really well done. I think the character sheet and playbook sheets are all really, really well done. I think they're explained incredibly well. And I think there's a lot of little bits of the rule set that you're just like, yeah, like that's such a good, easy way to do that.
I like the fear aspect of it a lot. I like
fear and hope.
Yeah, I like how it.
Well, even the NPCs wants and needs.
Yeah, that's your
whole
deal.
That's your whole bad guy stat.
I think needs. a lot of role playing games could learn from that. Just, you know, and it's funny because it's like storytelling craft, but you know, it makes it easier.
I mean, I think the rules are consistent. I think they're really well done. I personally can't think of anything where I'm just like, I don't like that part.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing, like I said, except with the complexity, you know, or the amount of things you have to sift through. But yeah, there's no rules in here that like, I was like, oh yeah, I don't like that. Or I think that's broken, or I don't understand that, or it doesn't make sense. Everything was pretty clearly laid out.
So in context of other games, we've never given a 10 for rules, and me and Hunter have talked about before. I don't think we really ever will, just because I don't think two people could ever really agree that it's their perfect rule set.
Right.
So the highest scores we've given obviously would be a 9. Death in Space actually got a 9. Kingdoms got a 9. 12 Years actually got a 9. Into the Odd actually got a 9. I mean, and when you think of those games, I mean, they're like, those rule sets are. And then we got a decent number of 8s. Mothership, Orbital Blues, Gun and Slinger, Cyborg. We actually gave an 8 to. What are your thoughts?
Probably in the 7 to 8 range, I would say.
Yeah,
because again, I don't disagree. I like all of the rules. My only gripe is like, it seems like a lot to manage or put on if this is intended for kids. That'd be my only thing. They need a lot more guidance from the narrator. So
yeah,
I guess that's.
I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah. Then I mean, otherwise, I think it's incredibly great and streamlined. Let's just go ahead and give this an 8 for right now. If you're between a 7 and an 8, because I was feeling like a pretty hard 8 right there. Originality. Name me another Halloween Town game.
Is that what is that? Well, we were just talking about the Disney movie, but like, are we talking about setting specifically, or just the vibe of the game too? Like,
so it's literally, and this is the most kind of abstract one that we have. It's whatever you really want it to be and what speaks to you as far as it goes. Because for me, like, I think the setting is really, really cool. I mean, obviously, you know, it's powered by the apocalypse, but it tweaks it and does it in a really cool way. But, you know, it's how you view, it could be the vibe, it could be the setting, it could be the rule set. It's whatever kind of like stands out the most to you.
Yeah.
So what stands out the most to you?
So the setting to me seems, I would say it's like 100% original, right? I mean, it's kids going into a creepy wood on Halloween night, but I really like the aspect of the Fiend, how there's this like lurking monster that's just always about. It's like this persistent thing that can, you know, step in and step out of the story. I like that a lot. As far as it being sort of, you're a bunch of kids, there's plenty of other games that have done that before. The nostalgia factor, Tales from the Loop, Kids on Bikes. There's a lot of games that are like, hey, you embody these kids and you go in, you know, solve problems or mysteries or whatever it may be. I think there's things about it that are pretty original, but then also things that feel like they were building off other games. So I'm trying to think of like where I would score that. I feel like it would be more like maybe in the 7-ish range. Like it's not like, holy shit, I've never seen this before, you know, but like some of those aspects, I feel like it's doing that genre justice, right? The whole like kids out on adventures, right? I feel like it's doing it justice. It didn't invent it, but it brought its own flavor.
So other games that got 7s, Death in Space, because I mean, we like that it's blue collar, but I mean, we could name 50 space games. Mothership actually got an 8, and Order Blues got 8 because, you know, space western, it's kind of been done a little bit, but they did it in a really cool way. Mothership, you know, kind of really like reinvigorated the entire space horror genre and did it in an interesting way. Red Giant was a 7, dark fantasy, but it done in an interesting way. And then like Into the Odd got an 8, and so did Warpland. Necronaulis got a 10 on originality.
Into the Odd's pretty fucking original. It feels like a really interesting set. Like I can't think.
Well, all of Bastion Land.
Bastion Land is pretty
in the rule set. So 7-ish, or
that's
is that what we're
thinking,
shooting about?
7-ish. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. And then value. I should have pulled that up.
How much
real
is this
quick.
thing? Let me look it up really quick.
That's what. Yeah.
So the hardcover on the Kickstarter was $26. So you get the hardcover book as well as the PDF. Maybe a little bit more like in retail, maybe like $30. But not only do you get all of the character creation, you get all of the moves in there, you get sample adventures, well, hollows, I guess you could call them. You get a lot of great tables for generating your own stuff all in one thing. And then plus there's, which I couldn't find. I think we should make note of that. I could not find the sheets for this game on the site whatsoever. So I checked the site and couldn't find any download links. So hopefully that'll be added, or maybe I just didn't find it. But
so there's a section that talks about like, I think it's the same thing you did. Oh no, it's right here. So if you click on like the very front page of the of like the home of Worldchamp, Worldchamp. So then you go to you click on Babes in the Wood. It takes you to the itch page.
Oh, you go to the itch page then. Okay, from there.
Yeah, it'll link you directly to the itch page from there. And you can buy the game digitally for $15. And it does have a CC BY 4.0 license, which means you can hack the shit out of this. All you have to do is attribute it. If you actually go below the community copies, it gives you all the playbooks, all of the basic moves, and Treats of a Hollow, all as free downloads right at the bottom.
Oh, I see. The downloaded demo. I see the claim access 56 remaining.
Yeah, but right underneath that, you got playbooks, basic moves, and Treats of a Hollow, all right there. So value-wise,
cool if it was on the main site, though. I wish,
Yeah, but I think
that's where it hyperlinks from the actual site.
Yeah, but I mean, hosting on the site, there's a amount you can host on the site, but a lot of the site will link all of the digital stuff, because I've obviously bought a ton of stuff from freaking Adam Vass, period. But most of the time, there's like it'll be like, go to the itch page for this, go to the itch page for that. Most of the digital download stuff where you can get things, go to the itch page. And some of the games, like, because when you buy from Adam Vass, you'll get, you buy all the stuff and it sends you a link that says email this with your receipt and you'll get the PDFs. But a bunch of them are like, hey, that's actually a free download on my itch page. Just head to the itch page. So I think what he does is keeps most of the digital stuff onto the itch page, and then most of the physical stuff onto the regular page, which is fine as long as you know.
And traffic, and that makes sense. But I mean, that has nothing to do with the value.
And you steer it towards where you can spend a little more money too.
Yeah. It's
but value-wise, I mean, one of the things that Adam does that I really, really enjoy with the game is there's actually multiple cost tiers to the game. So you can actually get let me scroll back to the page real quick. So if you go to the bottom here, there are 3 cost options. The default option for this book is $40, which, I mean, it's a well done book. It's hardback. I love a ribbon in it, but it's a beautifully, beautifully done book. Again, I wish I had it in my hands. Do you have the physical of this?
Me? No.
It's a great book. It's really well done. The pages are nice and thick. Like it's not doesn't feel like Viking Death Squad pages or anything. You know what I mean? Like Bible pages or something.
Yeah, Bible pages.
Yeah, default is $40. There's a hardship tier for $35 and a support tier for $45. So there's up to a 10-point swing between, what you normally pay, a little bit of a discount, and a little bit more if you want to support them. I love that. I love the concept of that. And $35, especially for hardship, is what we kind of determined was like average price for like a 100-ish page paperback. Okay. In the industry is about at $35. So to have like a 60-ish page hardback at a hardship price of $35 and $40, that feels like pretty average, maybe slightly better than average because of the hardship tier. But then you throw in the fact that it's got a built-in Creative Commons 4 license. So there is the option to build third-party content, which is always a bonus. So that gives a plus. And then again, all of the digital tools that you get right off of it, which is all the playbooks, all of the character sheets, all of and then the whole Treats of a Hollow section as well. So for me, if base is 5, leaning towards 6 because the price is okay. Then you got a Creative Commons license that at least jumps it to a 6. You get some digital stuff, which jumps it to me to at least a 7 in value for this, is where I'm at for the cost and the bonuses and things like that. I agree with that, to other games.
Because again, you don't need to buy a hollow generator. Like, you have the roll table in there. So not only do you have actual hollows in there to start with, you have a generator. And so it's, I think it's I think the value is good.
I think that is what up. I'm trying to see because I know that I just want to go to itch real quick, and I want to do a little search. I want to search Babes in the Wood and see how much third-party content exists out there for it.
Oh, good. Yeah, good idea. It would be so easy to create stuff for this.
Oh my gosh, it'd be so easy. But the problem with itch is it's probably literally the worst search ever. I mean, because Babes in the Wood immediately pops up, but there's times where I search for Worldchamp games and they don't pop up. Like, I literally have to dig around to try to find them. So anyway, I'm at a solid 7 on this for value. I think that's a solid score for this. And that is Babes in the Woods. So let's math this up real quick. We got an 8 plus a 7 plus an 8 plus a 7 plus a 7 is a 37, which is a solid score. And that puts that in the same realm. And now listen, don't forget about these scores. There's incredibly subjective to our bullshit tastes, and the things that we enjoy and don't like. And the other thing too is if there's some of these that aren't as important to you, like the value score, people have asked us why we do value as a score. It used to originally be price. And it's because if the book is too fucking expensive, we can't play your goddamn game. If your dragon book is $50 fucking, you're gonna cut out a huge portion of the population that can't fucking afford that, especially since you don't give the PDF with the book as well. You know what I mean? And when you get this book, that's another thing. You get the PDF with this. You know? So again, $50
I don't know
book
why
with no PDF.
It should always be that. It should always
well, because
be
D&D
that.
Beyond exists and it's not really D&D, so they have to make their fucking money, except now they bought it, so why the fuck don't you get all your PDFs? Anyway, 37 is a solid score. Other scores in that realm, Ark was at a 38, Red Giant was at a 37, Mothership was at a 36. Yeah, a lot of 36s. So this puts it squarely up there, right in the kind of upper echelon of a lot of the games that we've gone over. And really, the other thing that I like about this is the consistency. Everything was 7s and 8s, because there are some games that have like high scores that might have like a 9 in art and a 9 in layout and like a 5 in originality and a 5 in value. So that's what I was just trying to say about the scores is look at the scores that matter most to you when you're looking at the game, not necessarily the final score. It's just a way to kind of quantify it all at the end. Because I personally find a lot of the games that have more consistency like this, like all 8s and 7s, end up being kind of like better, well-rounded games than games that are like the art is insane, but the rule set, you know, could really use some work. But a total score is a 9 is really going to drag a 4 up more than an 8 is going to drag a 7 up, you know? So I really enjoyed this game a lot. I really want to play it. I've already talked to Kaylee. So my wife does not do role-playing games. But I told her, well, you know, in the OSR, a lot of times you don't really like role play. You don't need a 5-page character background. You don't need a crazy voice. You just kind of do whatever. And how would you feel about playing Halloween Town the game? And she was like, I will play Halloween Town the game. So this might be like the second role playing game I ever actually get my wife to play. So Adam Vass, thank you for that. And that's
we need to have I think that's an actual play that needs to happen. That's what I think.
Babes in the Wood. I think it'd be fun as shit.
Well, you and your wife.
If I could actually get her on stream, we'll see. Maybe we can get a couple of our friends together and make her feel a little more comfortable, and you can run Babes in the Wood for us and you can be our narrator. You have to fucking watch Halloween Town first, though.
Hey, man, you seem like the guy who needs to run it. You're the Halloween Town expert.
I'm not gonna run the game that my wife's playing, and I got to play with my wife.
What?
You know? Listen, the last time I ran a game for her, she wasn't there for a session and I had a rock fall down and break her arm. And I swear to God, like the one time she ever played D&D, I never stopped hearing about it. She's like, man, if you're banging the DM, you don't expect to break your arm, but you know, anyway, TMI. So that's Babes in the Wood, coming up, or what we're doing right now. Catch us on our socials. We're pushing 400 on YouTube. YouTube is one of the places that's really going to help us the most, because I think Jason said at 500, YouTube gives you more shit to do, which is really cool. So
community
we're pushing,
posts.
Yeah, community posts, whatever that is. Sounds cool though. So we are the Weekly Scroll, brought to you by the Adventure Archive, which I say at the beginning. The Weekly Scroll is kind of under the umbrella of the Adventure Archive. We also do a lot of AP stuff. Right now, Jason's one running our Death in Space game. Also has run some Merkborg. We're going to run some Cyborg coming up. I'm going to start running some games again. So if you do like the Weekly Scroll, especially if you listen on podcasts, check us out on Twitch at the Adventure Archive, YouTube at the Adventure Archive, and all the other socials on Twitter and Instagram for this specific podcast are the Weekly Scroll. You'll find us. It's a microphone that ends in a scroll. That's us. Stuff coming up tomorrow myself and Hunter will actually be back in the co-pilot chair, and we're going to be doing an interview of Kevin Rockman Daughtry, the creator of Forbidden Psalm. They're going to be coming on to talk about their new Cyborg expansion for the Forbidden Psalm game, Kill System Process. So that'll be on tomorrow at 1:45 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Central time. And then we'll talk about what's coming up next week sometime later. Also, don't forget, I'm going to do this podcast right now and put it up. If you're listening and it's before the 24th, Ennie voting is still happening. This easily got my vote for best family product. So go check that out. Go to the Ennie voting website. Throw a vote in for this game. Adam Vass absolutely deserves it. I think this game is wonderful, and you should too. So fucking vote for him. And that's all I got. Jason?
That's all I got. Let's hang out with some Death in Space on Thursday coming up. But yeah, it's a good
there
time.
We go. Second session of Search and Salvage.
Search and Salvage. Yeah. So see us then. Otherwise, I'll obviously tomorrow with Ryan and Hunter to talk some Cyborg Psalm, Forbidden Cyborg Psalm. What's it called?
Forbidden Cyborg Psalm. Yeah. So it'll be a good time. So that's it. I don't know how to shut the fuck up, so I'm just gonna say bye.
Bye. See you next time.